Can you? All right, we're gonna do this just for now while I get my program started. I can see my mic's coming through. For some reason, Elgato is not starting up. I might have to restart. The program won't start up, which controls all my my audio filters. How's the audio on this? Is the audio super quiet? Can you hear me? You can hear me. It's not. How's the quality? Is it? Do you get a lot of static or anything like that? It has the. Is it super quiet? How's the volume on it? Because all my my filters aren't going on it though. All right. Still have the banger start. The audio's good. All right, let's adjust that then. It's because it's not using. All right, we're gonna keep this like this. Let's adjust the that audio down. Let me know how the. All right, I think we're good to go. I think we're good to go. It's not too quiet though. I'm worried it's too quiet. It looks like it might be a little quiet, but that could just be me being oversensitive to me. Now I feel naked that my my audio mixer is not running. All right, I turned down the background music a little bit. How's the balance now? All right, we have to figure out what's going on with Elgato Wave program didn't want to start up. It's probably because I already have OBS open. All right, so as I was saying when I was silent there, Moonness, thank you so much for showing up on time. Thank you so much for showing up on time to let everyone know my audio is not working. But happy Tuesday, everybody. It's Captain Coder. We're back. We are back. You can't judge normal audio quality as long as it's not too staticky. That's my worst fear, is that it's staticky and hard to listen to. Yeah, I got the day right today. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. I'm Captain Coder. We are here. We're on what? Day 16, I think. What are we doing? Day 16, turn-based, text-based adventure, questing it up. It's a little rainy here in the desert, so another wet day in the desert. The rain is coming down, which tends to cause my internet to have issues. I've been having a lot of issues with my internet lately. I have a technician coming out on Thursday, so there will be no stream on Thursday. So I'm probably the saddest person about that. I'm probably more sad than anyone who might be watching this. But what are we working on today? We are working on adventure quests. If you want to follow along, if you want to get yourself caught up, we got adventurequest.captaincoder.org, where you can follow along with this Unity project I'm putting together. So what are the goals? Unity Adventure Quests is a project to learn object-oriented programming in C# using Unity as a conduit for creating a nice user interface, nice graphical user interface. So to get going on that, where are we at with it? We have been working on a combat system for our Adventure Quest game. Let me get my text editor open here. Yesterday we got stuck a little bit. We're working on user agent, but we're gonna do a sign on here to figure out what we're gonna get going on today. But Mooniz, thank you so much for being here, making sure my audio's working. I appreciate it greatly. I could have gone for hours without knowing. So I appreciate that. Yeah, so let's get our Discord sign on. Let's look at what we're doing. Last time, here we are. Last time, our primary goal, once again, is we are in the process of implementing a combat system for our adventure game. It's an RPG in the vein of Dungeons and Dragons, Swords and Sorceries, tabletop role-playing games. So it's going to be turn-based. It's going to be dice-based. We've added in combat scene here, so let's check out our scene so far. We have a nice little combat scene we've put together. Nothing too fancy, but we get an enemy appears, and then the player's first to act. In this case, the player can attack. When I click attack, it's sort of alternating right now between the enemy and the player here, so the player can attack, the enemy switches back. Moon is, nah, I'm here to gather points and get free stuff. That's right, I did set up a nice little shop. So we do have a shop now. Oh, do I have to do open shop? Is that a thing? Stream Elements, are you here? Are you here, Stream Elements? Uh-oh. My command's not working. There it is. Let's try points. Can we check out points? Yeah, we got points. Does shop not work? Is it items? There we go. So we do happen to have a little store going. So I set that up this week. So we do have a new Stream Elements store. Can check your points. I got some things on there that I'm not using at all that I'm happy to give away. So we actually have, if you want to check out the stream store. Okay. Lots of Humble Bundle stuff. Smab, happy, what's today? Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, my friend. But yeah, we got a store set up. You get the C# and .NET Ultimate Bundle. If you save up enough, we got a little simple Learn Unity. And then there's some fun ones here. If you want to check out one of my board games or say hi to my dog, you can. Like a true streamer, I have a little shop set up now, Smab. You can spend your points here, no money. I'm accepting no money currently. But if you save up enough points, you get yourself something fun, something educational. We'll be adding more stuff on there as my Humble Bundle. My Humble's always, and I never use all of them. Ooh, Smab has a playable queue list. It's console-based queue list, Smab. That's exciting. That's exciting. I'd love to. Is it part of? I would love to check it out. I mean, before I get too stuttery here, I'd love to check it out. All right. Before we were getting slightly distracted here, so we are implementing a combat system right now. We can do this attack button sort of alternates between it alternates between the player and the enemy right now, which is it's kind of what we want, but we don't want the user to have to click attack. When it's the player's turn, they should have to click attack. When it's the enemy's turn, it should just sort of happen. All right, so yesterday we were looking at potentially using tasks to accomplish this, but I thought about it. I thought about it a little bit more, and we definitely don't need to use tasks. All right, so let's look at the high-level overview here. Let's look at the high-level overview. We got a lot of components, but maybe we can draw out what this looks like. And then we're gonna put together a sign-on for today. We gotta remember not to forget to sign on. We have a habit of forgetting that sometimes. Yeah, Moon is, I've got so many things in my Humble collection to give away that we're gonna do that here on the stream using points. So if you people hang out, they can get some free stuff that I'm not using. Stuff that didn't cost me, so let me say, didn't cost me much. It sort of came with something else that I was getting, and so I'm happy to share that with people who want to hang out and learn something, chat with me, and have a good time. All right, so we have a combat manager. All right, so the combat manager is the sort of the class that's going to manage our combat for us. So this is going to have the combatants that need to act. All right, so we have the combatants. It sort of decides all the actions that need to happen. It waits for the player to take an action, do that thing. So we have this idea of a process round. So combat's going to take place over a series of rounds, and each round is going to have a result, which sort of will be the messages that get put into our text box there during combat. Okay, so the idea that we came up with was, well, we have this queue, and the queue sort of tracks. So right now we only have two. We have a player and an enemy, so two people. But potentially there might be room for expansion. So you might have a party of characters that you want to use, or a group of enemies that you might be in combat with. And so we have this queue of who's next to act, and we take someone out of the queue. So that's this DQ here. We take someone out of the queue, and then we determine how they're gonna act. So we're gonna generate an agent. So an agent, either a player agent or an enemy agent. The player agent waits for the user to do something and then acts. And the enemy agent sort of calculates, might do some AI stuff and do it. And then the cool thing about this is we could have sort of like a network agent. We're not gonna do that, but the idea here is you could have a network agent, and that one waits for information to come over your network and then allows you to have like a multiplayer. We're not gonna do that one, but we're gonna do a player agent and an enemy agent. Then the idea there is the agent selects an action, and then the combat manager performs that action on their behalf and reports the results. All right, so the issue we were running into is that the player agent sort of happens asynchronously. We have to wait for the player agent to select an action. So we've cheated a little bit here in our player agent by not having the player agent wait. So one way we could do this would be to use threads. So that was my original thought was, well, we'll just have a thread that waits, have a task that says, well, I'm gonna block. So blocking says, I'm gonna wait until we get some input and then continue executing here. But I realized, oh, that's not gonna work, because I want this game to be exportable as a WebGL project, and threads are not supported in WebGL. I did a little bit of research. It turns out that's not entirely true. Threads are experimental in WebGL, so there's a flag you can turn on to do it. But we're still not gonna do it that way. Instead, I was realizing, oh, when I thought maybe we do it as code between what it's doing. You can do this with a coroutine. All right. And we're also not gonna do that. I realized this can all be done using something similar to how we've been doing events, right? So what I really want to have happen is that in my system here, we're gonna wait for the player to click attack, and that's gonna be an event that triggers that our combat manager's sort of listening for. It says, oh, when the player clicks attack, do the next thing. So we're gonna implement a sort of, what we're gonna do is a callback. We're not going to use it as an event. We're not going to do an event because we don't want multiple people to register on it. It's just the agent. So we're going to have to update our agents to use a callback. So there's going to be like a method. I think I'm going to call it wait for action. All right. So someone, the combat manager particularly, can pass themselves and say, I'm going to wait for you to take an action. I'm going to wait for you to take an action. And then it's going to take in a method that allows them to send back the result of when the action happens, to send it back. All right, so let's do a sign on. That's what we want to get done today. So let's do a sign on here. Sign on. Primary goal, implement a combat system. All right, implement a combat system. Oops, let's edit that. Sign on, continuing work on adventure quest. Primary goal, implementing a combat system. Today, we want to implement, rework combat manager dot process round to use, what are we using? A callback to allow the combat manager to wait for the combat agent to act. All right. So that's essentially our big thing that we're gonna work on today, rework. I think that's all we're gonna really have time for today. So we're reworking the combat manager to use a callback to allow that thing. So that's our primary goal. Bonus. All right, because today we were back at work today. Holidays over, long weekends over, we're back at work. So what's our bonus? Our bonus, I would like to add in bonus add in defend action, flee action, add in defend action and flee action, and super bonus, explore, use item action. So this is something that's going to be a little bit harder because that's going to require us to implement like usable items and like add potions or something that allows us to have an effect in the game. But this is our primary goal. I'm going to go ahead and add this. I'm going to see if I can add this to our stream elements bot goals. All right, we're going to see if we can get it to have that in there. Sign on, continue work on adventure quests, and RPG prototype to explore how to implement components of a turn-based role-playing game today. All right, here we go. Get in there, activate, let's try it. We got our goals. There we go. Stream Element's gonna go ahead and tell us our goals. It doesn't format it super nicely, which is a little bit disappointing. But can we edit that to be a little bit more formatted? This is a command, supports variables, level, goals, advanced settings. That's okay. That's okay. We'll figure it out as we move along. We've got it in there, kind of. We'll add in some bars to make it look a little bit nicer. Let's try that. Save. Try goals. Alright, sorry so much for the spam, anyone who's here, but thank you for bearing with me. We're trying to make it so if someone asks us, a little bit easier to tell them. But here we are, we got our sign-on done. We're about to dive in, we're about to look at some stuff. Okay. So as we were saying previously, our process round, the type of this method isn't quite right. The type of our combat agent isn't quite right for what we need to be able to do. So what we need to be able to do is, rather than selecting an action, we want to do the following. We're gonna have a method that returns nothing, but it has a wait for action. So someone can register themselves, say, hey, I'm gonna wait for you to take an action, and I'm gonna do a thing. And the thing I'm gonna do, I need you to tell me when you're done. So we're gonna have this take in what's called a callback. All right. So notice this is gonna be our on action callback. All right, I'm not gonna use threads. I decided not to use threads, as much as it would have been nice to be able to do that. But notice the difference in how these two methods are written. All right, they have similarities, but they're different. They're different, but they're similar. We're gonna get rid of this select action, but notice this method returns an iCombat action. So this one would be a synchronous call. We say select action, and then it just does it, and we get that back immediately. The wait for action. Okay, so wait for action. And one other thing I want to do here, I want to have it passed in our combat manager as well. Big goals for today, yes. So maybe too big, for me. Gee, happy Tuesday, my friend. Thank you for coming back. I'm so glad to see you. How we feeling today? So the one thing we're gonna notice here is this method no longer returns anything. This method does not return anything. Instead, this method accepts a function. That's essentially what this action is. It's a function that accepts an iCombat action. It's a long goal, yeah. At least it's written out as a long goal. we're going to accept an iCombat action. So this is essentially our return type here. When we're done processing, our agent is going to call this and pass off. It's kind of like the event system that we've been using before. It's going to take this and it's going to use this on action to tell us that it's ready to go. Additionally, let me change the order of these. Additionally, we still have to accept the combat manager and says, hey, this is where you're going to get some of your information to actually take this action. So we're going to replace this select action with a wait for action. This allows the combat manager to give up control of the main thread and say, rather than doing a loop and wait, saying like, have you done something, have you done something, have you done something? Instead it says, just let me know when you're done. Let me know when you're done. This is called a callback. All right. You'll often do this with events, but this one's a little bit special in that we're not going to be listening for a long time. As soon as this thing happens, we're done. We're done. We don't care about it after that point. So we're getting rid of this select action. And now it's gonna yell at me. It's gonna yell at me. Say, hey, but you told me that's what you were gonna do. And so now my implementations, my player agent and my enemy agent no longer satisfy this contract. We have said, hey, a player agent is an iCombat agent and an enemy agent is an iCombat agent. Now we're saying, oh, well, we don't have, so we've changed the contract. So if you still want to be this thing, you have to update how you be this thing. Let's leave this in here for now. So we're gonna cheat again with our enemy agent for now. We're gonna cheat with our enemy agent for now, and we're gonna cheat with our player agent for now as well. And then we're gonna fix it. But wait for action no longer says return. We return void now. Remember that we return void. Instead, we're accepting an action as an argument to use. And so now when we're ready to essentially notify the caller that we're done, we're gonna do the following. We actually say on action dot invoke like this. So we no longer return. So before, this is a little tricky to get used to if you haven't done this before. Before select action would just simply return that. Now we're gonna actually invoke this. And the power of this is we could potentially do some other stuff. In the player, it's gonna make more sense. In our enemy agent, it's sort of like, well, I don't have to do anything, so here you go. In our player agent, this sort of is gonna notify us that, hey, you should enable the attack button, the flee button, the defend button. Should enable those things, because now it's your turn to do something. And then when you click one of those buttons, it's going to actually invoke the player agent to actually respond with an action. So our player agent is going to do the following. Our player agent is going to have a field. So it's going to have a field. It's going to have a couple fields. We need to keep track of the combat manager. It's going to have a combat manager. It's also going to save the callback. All right. This is our on action. So when we call wait for action, we don't return immediately. Instead, we save this information. Okay. We're going to have to do something here later. I don't know what the player is going to do. The player is going to wait and do something. So we just accept these things. We take them in. It's kind of like a little bit of a constructor. So we accept these things in. And then the idea here is that we can have a method that the button can invoke, right? So the button can invoke attack. All right. So when the player clicks attack, then we're going to do on action dot invoke. And in this case, we're going to do a new a new attack action, and it's the player that's attacking. So we're going to, in the manager, get the player wants to attack the enemy. All right, so when the button is clicked, we're going to invoke the attack, or when the button is clicked, it's gonna be attached to this attack, and then we're going to do an on attack invoke, and it's going to forward that to our combat manager. There's a couple things here that we need to make sure. It says, okay, well, If the button's clicked and it's not our turn, so we know it's our turn after the combat manager says, I'm waiting for an action. So these values can be null. So these are nullable values. So prior to waiting for an action, these should be null. All right, so if someone clicks the button, we'll just do, we're gonna have a little, an assertion. We shouldn't allow them to do that. So we're gonna report a little message to them that says it's not your turn. I mean, there's a couple ways we could do it. But the way that I'm gonna do it is, let's see, how am I gonna do it? Do I want it to be an exception? Should we not allow this to happen? Part of me feels like we just shouldn't allow it to happen. So if the manager's null or on action is null, that means no one is waiting for us to do a thing yet. And then the other thing is we only want to take one action, I believe. I believe in my mind we only want to take one action. So after we're done here, it says, all right, I'm done taking this action. We shouldn't be able to click attack twice. All right, the player shouldn't be able to click attack twice since it may not be their turn. Which says we only want to do something when we're waiting for an action. All right, so for now, I think I'm gonna put a little, what do I want to do here? I think I just want to silently ignore this. Is that right? Or should I report? I could do an assertion. I could do a unity assertion. All right, we're gonna do a unity assertion instead. All right, we're gonna do a unity assertion, and then we'll think about it. My thought is that the buttons should just be disabled. You shouldn't be able to click them if we're not waiting for an action. Okay, so in this case, we're gonna have, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna create a Boolean property is ready for action. Is ready for action is gonna be both of these values are set. All right. So if the manager's not null and the action is not null, we is ready for action. Okay. So I'm gonna do a unity engine dot assert dot debug dot assert. We're gonna assert that we is ready for action. All right, so we is ready for action. And if we isn't ready for action, we're gonna have this little error message that says the player agent is not ready to take an action. All right, so we can only take an action if we is ready. And then after we take an action, we say, okay, well, we've taken the action, we is no longer ready. We're gonna clear out those things. I'm not sure if this is entirely necessary, but I don't want someone to spam the button to have it happen twice. All right, so, because then your turn is no longer valid. All right, so let's go over here. It's probably gonna be a little bit upset with us still. These are gonna be okay, but the error we're getting is probably in our combat manager, because we're doing a refactor here. And sure enough, it's that, well, we no longer have select action. All right, Moon, I think it's my end, so I apologize for that. I'll be uploading a cleaner video of that later. So I apologize. I believe it's on my end. It's raining, like I said. I think it's a little bit unstable over here, so I apologize for that. Hopefully it will clear up as the rain clears up. But yeah, I'm seeing that I've dropped some frames. But thank you for coming and hanging out. As always, my friend, you're always welcome back. But have a beautiful day. All right, so we're gonna select, maybe I could restart my router. You know what, I'm gonna try restarting my router. I'll be back here in a moment. Stand by. Wish I could put a better, better message up here. Happy Tuesday! Guess who's back? We're back here. Captain Coder. Living a nightmare. The nightmare of a broken internet connection. All right. So we're up. I think our internet is stable. Is it still Tuesday? Happy Wednesday. We're back here. Did give me a chance to reboot my system and get my microphone settings back up and working. Oh man, I have a technician coming out on Thursday. I'm very much looking forward to that, so I can ask a real human being some real questions. So I have some thoughts of that. I think I know what's going on, but sorry about that. We're back here. We're with day 16 part 2. Day 16 part 2 of Adventure Quest. Let's see. So my internet service provider, so my ISP, had actually shut off my internet because I had reached, apparently there was a cap. I didn't know about it. I got 1.2 terabyte cap for like, I think it's a 28-day period or something. It might be a third per month. But anyway, from like December 15th to January 10th, something like that, I had used up my cap, and so I didn't have internet. So I went and I found out, oh, I have a data cap. I have a data cap. So I forced me to upgrade my plan, which I was okay doing. I like having fast internet, or I would like to have fast internet. So contacted them, upgraded to their unlimited fast internet plan, whatever it was, whatever it's called. And when I did that, it required me to get a new modem, like the modem so I rent a modem from them. I've learned that if you use your own modems, in the past I used to get my own modem, buy one, and then they grandfather them out. Grandfather's wrong word. They end up making them not work after a couple years. So renting them actually ends up tending to cost less, which is again annoying to me. Anyway, the new internet service requires to get the speeds, that requires a new modem, a new gateway. So they sent me a new gateway. The new gateway it works fine most of the time. Most of the time it works fine. The problem is that there's this, I'm like 80, I'll go with 87% sure, 87.5% sure that the issue is every day around from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. I have no internet. The router, the gateway just keeps rebooting. You can watch it, like comes on and then reboots every day, 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. Which drives me crazy because I wake up around like 2:30, 3 a.m. and so my internet just doesn't work at the time that I'm used to working. All right, so I like working at that time. Radar over on YouTube, hello. I'm gonna go on a rant here for a minute. So welcome aboard, Radar. Nice to have you with us. I'm gonna go on a rant here, and then we are gonna hop back into Adventure Quest. So if you don't mind, Radar, I'm gonna rant for another couple minutes. So I think what's happening is there's an update cycle that happens at 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. And because I just got a new gateway, my gateway happens to be out of date. So it's trying to update the firmware every day, 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. And they have what I call, what is probably an incremental update. So it can't do the update all at once. It's like on a really old version, and every version does like a single update, and then it reboots and it reboots and it reboots. All right, so this is driving me crazy. I've asked them multiple times. Yeah, Radar, I'm also on Twitch. So I've asked them multiple times to, reboot or change that window. And they keep saying they've changed it. And I think that they actually changed it to a worse time, which happens to be the time that I actually stream. And so today was bad. Anyway, when I went to reboot it, so I reset the modem, it started doing the update cycle. I was like, oh no. So I went through, I went and got my old modem. I still have it, hooked that up. So I think we're good to go. I have a technician coming out on Thursday who I'm gonna try and get to install all the updates all at once, I hope. But we'll see. But hopefully we should be stable here for the rest of the stream. All right, so that's my rant. So what are we working on today? We are Radar. Welcome aboard, my friend. Welcome to Twitch. Happy Tuesday. It's still Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Welcome aboard. Welcome to Captain Coder's Academy. We are building an RPG. We've hopefully managed to get our internet working for today. I would be okay if it was like once a week, right? It's literally happened every day, and I'm worried that it's just happened every day since like Sunday or something. No, since last week. Yeah, since it's been like 8 days now. I've been hoping it would just stop eventually. It'd get caught up with some, but it's every day. It's driving me crazy. Radar, no worries on staying silent. You know, I love I love, as you know, then I totally am happy to have lurkers hanging out. I hope you're learning something, but think you have many choices when it comes to your software coding streams, and we appreciate you being here. We appreciate you being here. As always, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I would be okay with once a week. I just want I want to be able to set the time window to a time when I'd be asleep. I go to bed at like 7, 8 p.m. So anytime from there to 2 in the morning would be good. Radar, that warms my heart to hear that you're learning stuff. So I'm super happy to hear that. So let's recap. So this is going to be like a separate video now. So let's recap what we did before everything fell apart. We are in the process of reworking our agents, our combat agents, to use a callback. All right, so previously, Radar, thank you so much for the follow, my friend. We're happy to have you here. So our agent, let me get my player agent open as well. Our agent previously had a method called select action. It previously had a method called select action, which was what we call a synchronous method. You normally don't think of this as a synchronous method, but typically everything's synchronous. It sort of happens in order from top to bottom, runs down, does its code. Do not worry about disturbing me. I love to be disturbed. I mean, I love to be questioned. I love to answer questions. All right, just not disturbing questions. So we select an action before, and it immediately returns an iCombat action. We take in a combat manager, which we'll use to get information about combat, and then return iCombat action. Moon is I'm glad to have you here. You are teaching me stuff about Unity, so I'm loving that. That's interesting. I'll probably edit it then. I can probably edit out that chunk later. So that way it's not there. Fascinating. Yeah, so this would return things. So we're implementing a callback. So we thought about doing this as an asynchronous using threads, so that the logic of our combat manager would be simpler. You say process round, and this is asynchronous. It says, well, I might have to wait, so I might be asynchronous. You might need to like put me in the background. All right. So by default, Unity uses one thread. It's called the main thread. You can do multi-threading in Unity. They have a thing called the job system. And the job system would allow us to use threads. However, it's experimental for WebGL, and we want to be able to publish this game as a WebGL project, give it as much accessibility as possible. So we're not going to do that. Another option would be to use coroutines, which is Unity's sort of in a single-threaded way to have multiple things going on at the same time. So it's like a thread simulation almost, not quite that, but you can think about it as a way to have multiple things going on. But instead we decided, well, we can do this using sort of events, and so we're going to actually use callbacks instead. So instead of having a method that takes in a combat manager and immediately returns a combat action, we're going to have a method called wait for action, and we'll look at compare these, which accepts a combat manager and a function and a thing to use to call back to whoever needs this, essentially our combat, call back to our combat manager when the result is ready. So instead of using select action, we are going to use a wait for action. So we've taken our return type and packaged that as a function here. Yeah, Muniz, I did some research on my own. I spent about 3 hours yesterday looking into coroutines seem cool, but it turns out that they're really, really resource intensive. And one of the things, you don't want to do resource intensive things if you don't have to. It turns out they're really, really nice for doing animations or like a timer. But it turns out they're really resource intensive, but if you wanted to add an easy animation, coroutine is perfect for that. Coroutine is perfect for doing some sort of animation that you'd like to specify top to bottom, so like a sequence of events. So I did a bunch of research. The job system is really what I want, but job system requires threads, and that's currently experimental in Unity 2021, which is the current long-term support. It looks like 2022 they fixed it for WebGL thread support because they're compiling it to a different WebAssembly package. But we're going to use this callback. Callback is actually what we want anyway, as far as the most quote-unquote efficient way. I was just trying to give an example of how you could use this to do asynchronous to reduce the load on the logic side. All right, so we've implemented our agents here. So what's nice here is we actually don't have to wait, right? So we're gonna have this wait for action. The enemy actually doesn't wait at all. It just knows immediately what to do, so it just passes it back. The player agent, on the other hand, has to wait for the player to actually take an action. So the player agent, when we get a wait for action, actually accepts in. Don't know why. Because there are. That's a great question. I like using long-term support things. The biggest one is I used an experimental version of Unity and ran into some horrific outcomes, probably just because I didn't know Unity as well. But you're probably right that I don't need to do it. The other reason, Smab, is because if I'm not using the long-term support, there's constant updates like that's what it was. There were updates to it happening frequently, and that was causing my students to get out of sync with my version, and they were downloading new versions all the time because it would recommend that they download the new version. That is what the problem was. And I didn't realize that it was like causing these weird update issues between them. So you're right that it's not necessarily experimental. You're correct, though. By the time my students want to publish anything, it's fine, though. By the time they're there, they'll get there. That's what it was. It was that the update on the non-long-term support one was coming out like monthly, and so we were having to update monthly, and that was kind of a pain. All right, so we're here. When we're ready for an action, we're going to notify. That's exactly how I feel, Rave. Rave, welcome aboard, my friend. Happy Tuesday. I think they said in November. I could be wrong, though. I could be wrong. So we're going to wait for the action. We do the attack action. We're going to invoke it this way. All right, so we forward on. So now we need to rewrite our combat manager a little bit. So our combat manager needs to actually say, I'm going to wait for an action. And now I have to tell it, well, what am I going to do at the end? So I want to essentially do these things afterwards. Yeah, as soon as I switch to the long-term support one, you get very, very few updates. You might get them right away, but essentially if you're using one that's like a year old, you stop getting updates, which was essentially the fix I found. So I want to do these things. So our process round now is actually not going to return anything. Instead, it's going to eventually call the onChange. So it's going to invoke that something changed. But we want to take these things. This is sort of the action we want to do. We no longer return this action, right? So we're going to wait for the action, and we actually have to pass in a function in here. So what we can do is say, well, we're going to have a function that is going to have an action like this. And this is called a lambda expression in a lot of things. So lambda is a form of, don't let the word lambda scare you. A lambda expression is essentially just a function. So there's something called lambda calculus. And don't let the word calculus scare you either, but it essentially defines function this way. So this is often called a lambda, or you call it an anonymous function. So this function has no names. And so we're gonna pass and say, here's what I want you to do when you're done. When you're done, let's perform that action. We're gonna then in-queue our character again into the end of this queue, and then we're gonna invoke it. All right, so there's a little bit of an issue here. I don't know if people see it yet, but there's a little bit of an issue of like, what if I click process round really quick, right? So if I click process round really quick, we're going to call it over and over. Well, I'm going to keep DQing people from my next to act. I only actually want to DQ someone if they've actually performed an action. So instead of DQing, what should we do? We need to instead check. We need to say, hey, who's at the front of this line? Who should go next? And what we're going to do is we're going to actually do what's called a peek. All right, so a peeky peek. That's right, Muniz. We're going to peek and say, hey, who's in there? Who's in there? We're going to take you out. We're going to take you out and generate our agent. We're going to generate our agent this way. And then after we actually perform the action, we're going to take that person off of the queue and put them at the end of the queue. So one way I could do this would be to create a variable here. iCombatant agent, iCombatant to acting. We'll call it acting, and we'll do turn q.dq. So inside of this wait for action, inside of this lambda here, inside of this function, that's where we actually DQ them, and then we put them at the end. All right, so we take them off, we put them at the end. I also can I don't necessarily need this intermediate variable. If I want to, I can just actually substitute this whole thing in here, which is a little bit maybe weird to look at, but we're gonna say in queue, the thing that's at the front. So it takes it, puts it at the end of the queue. So either way really is fine. Doesn't matter, but it lets us remove this sort of like intermediate variable there. Alternatively, I think we could actually, we kind of have a reference to who we peaked at, so we could probably just pass it in there and then call DQ anyway. But this is going to be our callback. All right. Yeah, so we got to get our agent. We ask our agent, hey, we want to wait for you to do something. And when you're done, let's do it. Okay. So let's give it a shot. So, well, it's actually, we're not done implementing it yet. We can't give it a shot just yet. Can't give it a shot just yet. Because we don't have anything attached to this attack here. All right, so this attack here, we need to like be able to reach in and invoke attack. All right, so right now, if we're lucky, if we click this attack thing though, it would work for if it's our enemy's turn. If it's our enemy's turn, it would happen. Let's open up our combat controller. Okay, so our combat controller needs to have access to the player agent, so that way we can actually invoke. Is this right? Is this combat controller? What's invoking on combat event player attack? This is it. So manager process round. It's not really doing a process round, a player attack here. This is like the hack we put in. Really, this attack should be calling the attack on the player agent, right? So we kind of need a player agent to be able to perform this on. So in our combat controller, we need to have a player agent, so we can click, when we click the button, we can say, hey, here's this event that comes to you. So we're gonna add this in here. We're gonna add in a player agent. All right, so public player agent equals, we can't set it to anything yet, actually. Let's make this a private. Player agent doesn't need to be accessible anywhere. Player agent. All right, we're gonna make this a field. We're gonna follow convention. Our fields should come before our properties. All right, and ideally here when we click attack, it'd be player agent dot attack, like that. All right, so that's sort of the forward that we need. You're probably noticing right now, well, but player agent's null. Our player agent is null. You're correct. You are correct. You are correct. So we need to be able to get that. Thumbert Games, welcome aboard. Happy Tuesday, my friend. Welcome back. Welcome back to the stream. I hope you're doing well. How are things going for you? How's your game coming along? How's your game coming along? Or are you working on a game? I think you had just finished a game jam. But yeah, how are things going along for you? Player agent attack. Let's see here. Got slightly distracted. When we initialize, all right, there's a couple things we could do. We need to figure out who this player agent is. So when we initialize combat, we could get the player agent here. All right, so let's look at our combat manager. Get our combat manager. Right now, I construct the player agent immediately before calling wait for action, right? What I might want to do as part of creating the combat manager, maybe I need to actually have my player agent here. So when I construct this, I say, oh, well, I know I'm going to need a player agent here. We can make that. And then we can have access to it inside of our here. So we'll have our manager, and then we don't need a field for our player agent. Instead, we can get it out of our manager and say, hey, that's what I'll do. I'll get it out of my manager and attack there. So let's try that. Let's try that. In our constructor, we're taking a player and a combatant. All right. And we are going to construct a player agent. Okay, so that's one way we could do this, and so that's what we're going to do here. So I could do player agent, player agent, and I'm gonna want this to be accessible outside. So we're gonna add in a public player agent like this. I don't know if I like that name. It's gonna be publicly accessible but privately settable. And what we'll do is we'll say that, well, we're going to make our player agent on construction equal to a new player agent, and it's going to take in, does player agent have a constructor? Oh, it doesn't. That's interesting. I feel like the player agent should probably take in the player. But I don't know that that's actually necessary, which is interesting, an interesting thought. So when we construct this thing, we'll have a player agent. Okay. And then in our process round, rather than building a new player agent each time, we actually will just return the player agent that's here. We say, okay, well, we're just going to use that one. All right. And now up here in my combat controller, I don't actually need a player agent anymore because I have the manager. So when I do the player attack, I can actually say, oh, my manager dot player agent dot attack. So I can grab my player agent and do the attack. That seems reasonable. I think that seems reasonable. So this really just becomes a forward to our manager to grab the player agent and say, do a thing. Well, I'm glad Thumbert says I'm back to my long-term project now. Not working on that now, though, just hanging out before the day job. Well, welcome aboard. I'm happy to hear that you are hanging out with us today. We're so happy to have you. I know you have many choices in your streamers, and I'm very glad you've chosen me. All right, so yeah, we have this player agent, player attack. And there's this other little thing that we sort of have to, we still have to invoke process round to sort of kick off this process, right? So when we initialize combat, I have a couple ideas on how we can do this. After combat has been initialized, we might want to call process round here. All right, so process round. And so the word process round seems a little bit, ahoy, Corpless says, we got progress ahead, yar. And yes, we do. So one thing would be after we initialize combat, we say, okay, well, now I'm ready to process a round. So we could sort of invoke it here, which I think I like. I think I like that here. Alternatively, we could sort of, when our controller, when we initialize combat, we could start it. But I think I really, really like it here, this process round, where it boots it up. and starts the process. And what's interesting is after an agent takes a move, I think we want to do another process round here. It says, okay, process round. After someone takes a turn, well, boot up the next round. Boot up the next round. So this sort of creates this process where it cycles to the next one. As soon as one agent's done, it says go to the next round. And the thing I really, really like about this is it lets us hide this process round. We can make it private. Say, oh, no one needs to know about me. All we have to do is initialize combat, and that kicks it off. And part of me feels like process round is now sort of a misnamed thing because we're waiting for the action. And so I'm not sure if process round makes sense, but it could also be called like process next round. I'm gonna leave it for now. And then we're gonna follow some C# conventions, and we're gonna move our private methods below our public method. That's sort of a C#, a Microsoft suggestion. A Microsoft suggestion for organization. So we're going to try and follow that. Okay. All right. And I know we said we were probably going to use some kind of factor, but I think we don't need that anymore. I think we've figured out how to not have that. Let's see here. I'm really, really curious. I'm really, really curious if this is wired up now. I don't know for sure. Chica the Zlork moves to attack, moves to act. If I click attack, I attack, and then the Dark Knight attacks. So the Knight now takes their turn automatically, and now it's my turn again. But the player's not ready to take an action. All right, so we have a little bit of a like bug here, but we did make some progress. That was pretty cool to see. All right, so now we got to sort of figure out what this bug is. And this might be a good time. Look, the Dark Knight attacks. The Dark Knight was first to move that time, and they went ahead and attacked. And now we can attack. And so what I'm thinking is happening, I'm not really sure. It went back and forth. Something's happening on the second one, which is interesting. Player agent. So I think I'm going to use the debugger. To kind of say, okay, let's see. So everyone cross your fingers that the debugger is going to work here. Everyone cross your fingers that the debugger is going to work here. But I would like to know each time process round is called, how is wait for action being executed? All right. So I'm not sure how things are getting queued up, but let's go ahead and add a thing in here. The other thing that I kind of like is when we go for a wait for action, we might be able to have that actually send a prompt to the user that says, hey, it's your turn to act. All right, so I'm gonna add a breakpoint here. I'm gonna connect my debugger. There we go. And we're gonna keep, it's connected. All right, so not so pro tip, if you're debugging in Unity, sometimes it has connectivity issues. But a way to know whether or not your debugger is actually attached. It's rebuilding. A way to check if your debugger is actually attached is this little down here in the bottom right corner. You get this little bug. If you have the blue check mark, that means your debugger is attached. So for example, if I let me detach my debugger. If you're not attached, you get this yellow exclamation point. So if you're in debug mode and you're not attached, you get the yellow exclamation point. And so let's see if we can reconnect. Sometimes we have trouble connecting. If you're using VS Code, you get a lot of output here when it connects. But every now and then, and I know there are some things I know that we can do that'll cause this to happen. When you go to connect, it won't happen. So if you're having trouble, you're like, why isn't my debugger attaching? Double check. Make sure that's attached. And if it's not, then restarting Unity seems to solve the problem. That's been my fix. It's like my quick workaround. All right, so let's pop in here. This scene's gonna start up, and we are probably almost certainly gonna get here because it initializes combat for us. Oh, it's Chica the Zlork. Interesting. I'm surprised. Oh, it's not. It didn't didn't attach properly or something. Or I've put this in a weird spot. Let's try moving our breakpoint here. All right, let's reattach. Because process round should be called after we initialize. So I'm surprised. I'm surprised I didn't get in there. We're gonna try again. I bet it's something. All right, we're gonna try again. Looks attached. my breakpoint. There it goes. There it goes. We found it. All right. So process round was called. If we look here, we're gonna take a peek. We can look in here. We're non-player members or non-public members. We have our turn queue, and so we have our player first and then our entity. So our player is going to be first to act. So I'm going to step over here. It's going to pull out my player agent. All right, so agent is now a player agent, and we're going to step into this so we can see what is happening when I do this. I'm going to step inside, and it's going to set manager and on action. All right, so manager on action gets set, which is what we want to have happen. We come back, and now we're essentially waiting. All right, we're essentially waiting. So I'm gonna click play here to say, keep executing. Don't let me step through. Wait until we hit another breakpoint. All right, and so now we get the action output displayed. It's, oh, I need to update that. That's a to-do, get the name to appear. I think that's already in my to-do list. But it's Chica the Zlork's turn, that's our character's name. Chica the Zlork hits attack, which causes this to execute. So the wait for action stuff executed, which invoked process round. It invoked process round at the end. So let's see. This looks correct so far. Our enemies at the top and our characters, our enemies first in the queue, our characters second in the queue now. So let's step over. It should select enemy agent, good. So we get an enemy agent. And ooh, we ended up back at, oh, our enemy agent went fast. Our enemy, when we called wait for action, our enemy agent actually invoked that right away. So our enemy agent, we didn't get to see it because it was so fast, but our enemy agent took their turn immediately. We didn't have to wait for them, so they took their turn immediately. And at the end of their turn, that caused process round to happen, which started it. So I actually think it should be process round. I think the name should be start next round. So it should be start round. So note to self, mental note, we're gonna rename that in a second. But now our character's at the beginning now. All right, so our character comes in. We should, get our player agent. We get our player agent here. And I wanna step in. I wanna see what happens inside of this. Okay, so our player agent. Oh no, our debugger detached. Our debugger seems to have detached here, which is a bummer. We're getting close to seeing that, and then our debugger timed out. All right, we got to reboot Unity. Bear with me through this technical difficulty. Oh, Unity. Let's end that task. All right, we're gonna stop this debugger. We're gonna restart Unity here. So sorry for the delay. How's the stream, by the way? Has it been stable since I restarted it? Any noticeable hiccups? Well, this gets going. Excellent. Muniz, thank you for the quick response. I appreciate it. And thank you everyone for your patience here. All right, so we're gonna try connecting our debugger again. And really what I care about is when we wait for action. All right, but Thumbert Games, thank you. Yeah, I've switched back to my old gateway, and that seems to have resolved the issue. Hopefully the technician when they come out on Thursday. Unfortunately, no stream on Thursday, guys. So sad. I think I'm more sad than anyone else. But no stream on Thursday, unfortunately. Technician's gonna come out. They said we won't have internet all day on Thursday, which I hope is just them basically letting us, you know, what is it called? Under promise, over deliver. So I hope that's an under promise, and that our internet will be back much more quickly. All right, we're connected. We're connected. Let's try it again. Process round. All right. We are processing. Who are we processing? This is our player character. All right, so we'll hit play. The first one seems to work fine, so our player character is going to attack, which invokes our enemy. We'll run it. All right, so we're on our player character again. Please let me. Oh, I didn't mean to step over. I stepped over it. No. All right, that's okay. I can check my agent real quick while I'm here. It says our agent is ready for action. Interesting. Our agent is ready for action. So it has all this stuff set. Let's hit continue. All right. And so the issue is when I click attack here, player agent's not ready. Oh, duh. We assert. Oh yeah, we're asserting that they is ready. Okay, let's put a breakpoint here instead. In both of these places. I want to see how often this is being invoked. Let's disable this combat manager one. Let's reconnect. Reconnect. And let's run it. So now it's only gonna happen when we actually click attack. It should go in and we should be able to see what's going on there. All right, so I click attack. We end up in here. So we've ended up in attack once, and these are both set. And then it sets them to null. Okay. And then our enemy should attack us. And then we're gonna attack in. So I'm curious. All right, so I click attack. We end up here. And they are null. What is... That's so interesting. That is very interesting to me that they're null. Let's restart this. How often do we end up in wait for action? So one option I have, because we should be calling wait for... All right, so we're going to have wait for action tell us. All right, let's stop this. Reconnect. If we get our player first, we'll be waiting for action. We're in our player first. These get set. All right, so manager and on action are set. Hit continue. Waiting for us to click attack now. We click attack, and they're still set. Okay, good. So I should be able to click continue. And then what happened is we wait for the action again. All right, so the player's next turn has come up, so we wait for the action. We hit play. All right, so these should be set again. Oh, I didn't check. Silly me. I didn't actually check. They're null by the time we get there, though. All right, so let's restart again. Sorry. I can do it. You got to believe in me. Believe in me, please. Please believe in me. If we all believe, maybe it'll come true. All right, so I click attack. This happens. What's interesting... All right, so this has only happened on the attack. All right, so we'll click continue here. My inputs on action and manager are not null. And I'm amazed that by the time I get back to this, they're null. By the time we get back, they're null somehow. So it's a step return here. So we've called that, and our agent non-members still are null, or are set. Something is happening between the time. Oh, I think I'm gonna have to restart Unity. The debugger's so broken. By the time I click attack, Boogie says, I'm amazed that you added background movement. We are achieving levels of stream I didn't even think were possible. I think I've always had background music. Is that not the case? I think yesterday there was a point I forgot. I had accidentally turned it off because I was demoing someone's thing and then I forgot to turn it back on. But I think we've always had background music. Is that not true? The values are getting set. Oh, it's louder today. Is it too loud? Is it too loud? I tried to keep it quiet. I don't like it being super loud. I'm assuming you can hear my voice fine. It's good? Okay. All right. Well, if anyone wants it quieter, let me know. Yeah. It is quiet. It is quiet, though, because I don't want it to distract too much. I don't want to distract too much. Why are these null? This is wild to me. The only thing I can think is we're somehow getting a new player agent. Let's reconnect here. I'm curious. I'm curious about something. Are we ever constructing a second player agent? Public player agent. So I just want to know when we construct a player agent. I want to make sure we're only ever constructing one. The only place we should ever set them is after we actually do an attack. But if we're getting a new one, they'll be null. All right. The other thing I do is add a check in here. Yeah, I'm curious about why they're getting reset to null. It's all right, Boogie. It's all right, Boogie. No biggie. It's a no biggie, Boogie. I'm glad you noticed it, though. I like to have it in there. Sometimes it's so today I think it's just not as subtle. I often have it on like an ambient, but today I'm like, we're grooving, right? I feel like we're not even connected at this point because it should have had a player agent. There it goes. We attack, and we're gonna get a crash here. All right, so I want to see. We didn't even get a constructor, or do I gotta put something here? Debug.log player agent constructed. I think it's upset with me. Unity engine dot. I have to actually have something in my constructor for it to stop on. That makes sense. That makes sense. I have like 20 hours of music that it randomly selects from. It just happens to have selected a more intense one. All right, so our player agent gets constructed, and we wait for the action. All right, let's attack. Should work the first time. Then we're waiting for the action again. This is so crazy to me. What is changing those values? What is changing those values? We only ever construct one. Somehow they're getting set to null, which is blowing my mind. All right, we're gonna do a little bit of all right, so here's how we're gonna test this. At some point they're getting set to null. So we're gonna make these properties. I know. Yeah, see, here's the combat manager. Here, let's go to the combat manager. So I'm gonna leave the combat manager up there on the side for you. Mark on YouTube says hi. Hello, Mark. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. I'm gonna add a little trick for debugging here, but this is the process round. Yeah, so process round. If you wanna see if you can find my bug for me. So we're Unity engine not debug here. I'm gonna make it so that way I can see whenever I need to add a breakpoint whenever our combat manager variable is changing. So I'm gonna do something a little bit odd, but I'm gonna add a getter and setter for my manager, so that way I can do a breakpoint when it gets set. When it gets set, I want to be able to add a breakpoint anytime it gets set, and same with on action. All right, so I'm going to add in and take this breakpoint. I'm going to add in a breakpoint here. When we set, manager is going to be set to the value. But first, we're going to do debug.log setting manager to value. All right, so we can see anytime Unity engine dot debug. Okay, I'm gonna add a breakpoint here so we can actually see this happen. And then maybe we can figure out, well, who's calling this? Somewhere's calling it. We can see a stack, I hope. I hope we'll be able to see a stack trace of it. And we're gonna do the same thing for our, well, yeah, let's do the same thing for on action here. So we're gonna create a private action on action. It's gonna be something really dumb, I think, but we're gonna see if we can find it. But from what I believe, yeah, the only place the player agent gets set is during construction. Thunberg Games, thank you for hanging out. Good luck at work, my friend. We'll see you next time. We'll see you next time. Have a beautiful day. Setting action to value. All right. And so down here now, we will do manager equals on action equals. And these just shouldn't be exposed anywhere. No one should be able to touch them outside of this class. They should only ever get set here. And I'm going to remove these breakpoints and just put a breakpoint on our set. Where's my debug window? Let us have one here. Why is that? Oh, file is modified. I gotta rebuild this. Is Unity's hash table pretty much still a dictionary? I've never used Unity's hash table. The word hash table implies to me that it is in fact a dictionary. But I have no idea. I've never used it. Let's clear this. All right, we have no compilation errors. We can add a breakpoint here and here now. I think, why is this? This is telling me unverified breakpoint file is modified. Please restart. Oh, I gotta stop this. That's why. Yeah, maybe someone else can answer that question, Rave. Because I'm honestly not sure. All right, let's try and attach our debugger again. May I ask why you set the manager in action every round? Aren't they always the same? So the idea is that you should only be able to perform it when it's your turn. So after you actually take an action, the manager and action get reset. It says, okay, I can't do this anymore. You could do it in the constructor, but the idea is the player agent is independent of the combat action. That's sort of like the idea I have here. Is so when we wait for an action, it sets these things. It says these things are waiting for you to take an action. And so you can only take an action if you have them. And then after you take an action, you shouldn't do it again. You shouldn't do it again until this is called. So it's sort of, It goes between wait action and then whatever you're doing. And so this might not be the right way to do it. Instead, I could do a thing where when I go to do an attack, the manager knows whose turn it is. But that doesn't change that there's this weird bug happening here. That doesn't make sense to me. And so I would like to try and make sense of this bug. All right, so we happen to be setting this here, and value is a thing. Let's click continue. It's just odd to me because these are private, so they shouldn't be able to be set by anyone outside of the class, and the only spot we set them is here. Yeah, I know there's a call stack. I want to identify if value ever is null here. All right, I want to identify as value is null here. Look, now it's calling it with null. So somewhere is setting these values in our, so all right. Somewhere is setting it to null, which is crazy to me. And I just don't know where that is. That's so wild. That you're right, Mooniz, the order well, it's actually happening after. It's interesting. Yeah, the order is bizarre here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change how I'm doing this. It should. So here's the thing, though. It's all single threaded. It's single threaded. We shouldn't have, or it's supposedly single threaded. It shouldn't happen that way. Which is wild to me that it is, because it is single threaded. We have one thread. All right. Let us change how we're doing this, though. We're going to change how we're going to do this. And instead, all right, instead, our combat manager is going to have a public iCombat agent next to act. And this is gonna, we'll be able to just compare it to this and say we should only be able to act if it's our turn. So this is gonna be our turn queue.peak. And I guess it should be iCombatant. Maybe. So it should only ever set it to null after you call perform action, though. So I'm not gonna worry about it too much. I'm gonna redesign this to be better anyway. All right. And so instead, we are going to, in our player agent, we are not going to clear these things out. And instead, we're going to say if our manager dot, if our manager is null, all right. So we're going to assert that our manager is not null. All right, we're going to assert that we is ready for action. And then we're going to do the following. Say if manager.next to act is not equal to player character, then we're going to return. We can't act unless it's our turn. All right. and we'll make a thing here called player. So now when we construct this, this is why I was like going, well, we kind of need to know who we are. So this should be an I character player. And so we're going to import this. And we're going to come in here. We'll have a private I character player. And player equals player, like this. It's just the order there is so fascinating. We don't need these anymore. Let's get rid of the breakpoints. Breakpoints gone. Changes back to manager on action. Okay. Player. All right. So if the next act is not us, we do nothing, and potentially there should be like a debug, you know, something going on here about like who we are, but we're gonna just ignore it for now, and I'm gonna put a to do consider interesting is ready for action would also mean that it would need to be our turn. Anyway, if it's not our turn, we're just gonna return. Okay, so you have to have called wait for action to get here. I want to invoke the action multiple times. I mean, I'm thinking through this a little bit. I think this will solve it in our combat manager now. When we construct our player agent, we have to give it the player. So now we'll have the player as part of our agent. All right, let's give it a go. It's Chica's turn. The Dark Knight attacks. Took 12 damage. All right, there we go. And we can make it, so one thing I want to do is I want to make it so that way, I guess we could spam attack if we really, really wanted to. But this seems to have resolved the issue. I'm thinking here. Yeah, so we're using it as a callback system. So we don't need any sort of threading stuff going on. Perfect. Perfect. All right, let us consider something real quick. Player agent, enemy agent. There's something I don't like about this. Do I need a player and enemy thing here? Should this be a queue of just the agents to act? Does every enemy need an agent, or can I use the same agent for all enemies? I think this is like, I think this is okay. I think we're okay. My player agent. Maybe my player agent should take some time. No, because in a different combat situation, they might do something. Oh no, because an enemy needs the combat manager, and the different you might have a different combat manager each time. That's what I think. This will actually make it so that maybe a little bit easier to test AI stuff. If we have the combat manager pass in here, this single method's a little bit easier to test. Okay, so I think I like this design. All right, let's get a commit in. I'm pretty happy with this. We've just finished our first goal. Let's close all of this and just take a quick look at each one of our modifications. This looks good. Our redefinition of our combat agent looks good to me. On our player agent, yeah, we're good on our imports. I don't need this. Should this be a system.debug instead of a Unity engine? I'll leave it as a Unity engine for now. Our enemy agents, simple. Okay, and our combat manager, we have reworked the combat manager such that we construct a player agent when the combat manager starts. We have a next to act, so we know who's next. We have a player agent. Still can pull up the player and enemy. I'm not convinced that this is the best API for this. We will likely be adding additional components to it, but this seems okay for now. Our initialize feels a little bit complex. I'd like to refactor this at some point, but I have that in my to-do already. And then the process round was the big rewrite here. So process round now uses a callback rather than sort of waiting using threads. Okay, and then our combat controller, we have an extra white space we can get rid of there. Our player attack just forwards it to our manager. And that's the only change we made there. All right, so this is beautiful. Let's save our scene if we haven't. Our scene is saved. There's no star, so we know it's saved. Let us go ahead and add this in. So this was a feature, or maybe even a refactor. Refactoring combat manager dot. Oh, I wanted to rename that. All right, let's open this file. I wanted to rename, rather than process round, it'll be start round. Start next round. Okay, so we're gonna start the next round. So we're gonna add that in. Refactor combat manager, process round goes to start next round. And then we'll add a little comment in here about reworked implementation of process round to use a callback, which waits for the iCombat agent to select an iCombat action. For enemies, this action is calculated immediately. For players, this uses the this waits for the player to click a button. So you could do the exact same thing for your player agent in a non-Unity project. So this is why I was hesitant to whether or not to keep Unity debug here, is you could actually have some system set up where you wait for the user to type something in, and that would invoke attack. So when they type attack, it invokes this. And so you might have a, what's called, so we have our combat controller. This is currently a mono behavior, but if you're doing a text-based version, you might have a combat controller that isn't a mono behavior. Instead, it waits for user input, right? So when you go to combat, you're like, okay, now I'm using the combat controller. This thing displays messages to the user and they type in, and that will invoke our player agent for us. Okay, so that's an alternative approach if you weren't necessarily using Unity. And we've managed to do this using callbacks rather than threads, so I'm pretty happy about that. Got that commit in. Let's check out our sign-on. What are we hoping to do? All right, sign on here. 100 Acres got to sign on for us. I believe that's Boogie. Rework combat manager.process round use callbacks. Oh, so we finished this. We actually made it. We got through that much quicker than I thought we would. So now our bonus to add in defend action and flee action. Okay. So we're going to add in a defend action for our player, which I don't know what that's really going to do. I think that's going to be kind of much more difficult because that's like a conceptual thing that we have to do. So I'm gonna actually implement the flee action first. I'm gonna start with flee action because that one I don't think is so conceptually difficult to implement. We also at some point need to implement like how do we know when the combat is over. But we're gonna look at the flee action first. All right, because the defend action requires me to think a lot more. And we're probably gonna end up with our flee action is gonna require me to think a lot more as well. The flee action, FLEA, we throw fleas at your enemy, make them itchy, make them itchy, get them nice and irritated. We have been going for about an hour here. It might be time for a quick break as well. I know I know it's almost time for a quick break. I have Earl Grey tea, but my tea is out. I still have a little bit of water, so we're gonna go until I run out of water here. So probably another 15 minutes. Then we're gonna take a break. Not in control. We're gonna model combat. All right, so attack action. We want to have attack action. We want a flee action. All right, so we're gonna do a flee action like this. It's gonna be similar. Flee action. And so we're gonna have to figure out, okay, well, when we have a flee action, what are the results of that flee? And how does that sort of affect the scene? When it's successful, what does that mean? Does that essentially it's going to cause us to leave combat, so combat will be over. So we'll need this idea of a combat, outcome, something along those lines. So our combat results likely needs to be updated in some way. But this is going to be our flee action, and I don't know that we need an attacker on this one. Instead, this is going to be the person that's fleeing. Fleer. Fleer. Is fleer a word? Fleer. A fleer. Someone who flees. What would be the word for someone who flees? But I think our flee action just takes in the person. We sort of a fleer of actions. And so it's no longer the attacker. This would be like the enemy that's trying to prevent us from running. So we'll call this one enemy. Person running is sort of how I feel. What is a word? Sorry, let's see if we can get a web browser open up here. Coward. True warriors face their death. Someone who flees. Fugitive. What do you call a person who flees? A fugitive. Interesting. Define fleer. Fleer. Laugh impudently or jeeringly. An impudently jeering look. So fleer. Let's try with the extra E. To run away. All right. Clearly. All right. Escapee. I'm gonna go with coward. I like coward. But I don't feel like that's the best name. Coward. And enemy. All right, so this is gonna. So when you're running, you're gonna like. So the idea in this particular game. So in Dungeons and Dragons, you typically like roll to see if you hit someone. You're like competing against their armor class. In this game, all of your actions when you're competing against someone, both participants roll, and then the greater of those two rolls sort of wins. So when you're running, we're gonna compare you against the enemy. So we have two combatants. And in this case, we have coward and enemy. But naming things is essentially my biggest enemy when I'm coding. Here we go. I'm going to come in here. We have coward and enemy. And performing the action doesn't do coward.attack. Instead, we sort of need to calculate what we're doing. And so we're going to start with by making a combat result. Result. The combat result. And we're going to build up this thing. So results, when we know what we know the name ahead of time. Format our document. At the end of the day, we're going to return that result. Okay. And let's close that bar over there. Combat results. All right, so result dot add. We're gonna say that the coward dot name looks afraid. Looks afraid and attempts to flee. Okay. Moon is naming things is the number one issue in development. Getting things to where it can be hard, but naming, that's a completely different beast. Absolutely. How do you communicate to your team, to yourself, to whoever's going to be looking at this? How do you communicate what essentially what that variable is? So I really don't like the word coward here. Coward is kind of a terrible variable name because it doesn't really communicate what coward is, but that's what we've kind of done here. Jokingly, I'd like to come up with a better name. What I might call is just like the fleer. That's really what I want, is someone who flees. I want the fleer. But that's not a real word, is it? All right, so the coward looks afraid and attempts to flee. So now we have to do an ability roll. Ability roll. And our ability roll is going to be like escape roll. And I really, this is sort of going to be the same type of roll for everyone. So I'm actually going to make this a private, static, read-only escape roll. So we're going to be using this on all of our every time we go to perform an action, we're going to be using this. It's going to be my static escape roll. And it's going to be a 1d20. So we're going to roll a 20-sided die. And then we're going to add in our character's ability dot agility, I think. So agility has to do with how fast you are. So we're going to do our character's agility is going to get added to their escape roll. All right. And then we're going to have a catch roll. So this is the roll that the person who's trying to catch you is going to use. And for now, I'm going to leave it as the same, 1d20 plus agility. But I feel like there might need to be something else here. So I'm thinking we might need to have something that's like a trait roll as well. Or our ability roll might be able to add in like our traits. So I might want to do something with stamina here. I think stamina is going to play an important role here. But I'm going to use these two things, have them be separate so that way I can use them separately. Disengager or bolter, someone who bolts. Disengager, I think, is a little bit better. I think, what do people think about acting combatant? Or fleeing? Fleeing. What about fleeing? Instead of fleer, we can have a fleeing. And then this is who you're trying to escape from. Fleeing feels reasonable. Fleeing feels reasonable. All right, so our fleeing. All right, so int flee roll is going to be our escape roll dot roll with our fleeing. Like that. Fleeing, the act of imitating a flea. Correct. Catch roll. And this is going to be our catch roll, and this is going to be our enemy. Like that. And we're going to compare these. The catcher is going to have the advantage here. I'm going to make the catcher have the advantage. I'm going to say if catch roll is greater than flea roll, we are essentially going to put in, let's see, thing about this. our catch roll greater than our flee roll. Then a result dot add attempts to flee. Here. I just realized a flee from enemy dot name. All right. It's afraid and attempts to flee from enemy. We're gonna say that the enemy dot name catches fleeing dot name. There is no escape. All right, and so this will be the result. Return that result. Well, I guess I don't need to have that there. We can say else result dot add fleeing dot name escapes. All right, so now we need to sort of have like this indicator of, well, they escaped. We need to indicate that the combat is over, right? And that there's essentially like no reward for doing this. So there's a couple ways I could do this. I can make a subclass of combat result that sort of tells us whether or not we can make a subclass called like flee result, which will tell us whether or not it has like that'll give us information. I think in my combat results, I'm gonna actually just encode this information in our combat results as a class. So rather than having subclasses of this thing, I think I want to have the following. Every combat result, because your attack could actually result in the combat being over as well. So we're gonna have a Boolean here called is combat over. Let's see, is combat over? Is that the right thing to put here? Is combat over? I'm not sure I like this, but that I think is what I'm gonna do here. Have a get and a set on it. Is combat over? Alternatively, we could, yeah. So I'm gonna go with is combat over. And in this case, when we escape, we're gonna say combat's over. So result dot is combat over equals true, and essentially by default it's false. All right. So this is gonna allow us in our other scene to do some more. Yeah. Is combat over? I think I like that. I'm not 100% sure if I like it or not. All right, so when we perform an action to escape, we either get caught and then combat's not over, and the default value is that it is over. Is not over. So we only set this true if we need to. So to make that explicit, this is not necessary. The default value for Boolean is false, but I'm going to be explicit about it here. Okay. All right, let's now in our player agent add a public void flee, and same thing as this. So something that I'm not, you notice I just did a copy and paste here. I don't like that. I don't like that. I know that in all my actions, I'm going to have this sort of thing at the beginning. And so I could potentially try and wrap that somewhere. And then I still have to do it on all of them. Well, yeah. So I think I'm going to make it. So here's what I'm going to do. Private void. Yeah. Perform select action. All right, and this is just going to take in an action to perform. So it's going to be an I combat action like this to perform. And we're gonna put this in here like this. So if we actually make it to this point, we just invoke it with the thing that we're gonna to perform on. And then these become calls to select action. So it just forwards it off to select action with the actual constructed thing. So it's a little bit odd because we're constructing this thing and then we're checking, but it gives us a little bit of freedom to do that. Alternatively, we could make this be a function that produces that thing, and then it doesn't actually get called until later, but then we're constructing that function. So I think I'm just going to go with this. I think this is not that wasteful, and in fact we might actually just we could potentially make this sort of a constant inside of here. But attack then becomes a call to select action like this. So you'll notice I caught a whiff of copy and paste here. I'm going like, well, I'm going to want to do this for all of my actions for this validate. So we created this is called a delegate, I believe, where we say, okay, well, this thing is going to check those things and then perform our action if it's allowed to. And so it's sort of like a helper. You might call it a helper method here. It's private, it's internal, but these just forward to that. All right, so anytime you're copying and pasting, consider that as a code smell. The only thing that was changing was this, so I've generalized it a little bit. So now we have a flea. And so our player agent has a flea. Now we just need to wire that up to our player controller, or our combat controller. Is that what it was? I don't think that's right. I think it was, which controller is it? Might be our combat controller. Player attack, yeah. So now we're gonna forward that again here. Public void player flea goes to our manager.playeragent.flea. And remember, we're trying to follow model view controller here. Trying to follow a model view controller. The player agent is the model of the actor, right? The controller is the tool that's interacting with Unity to allow us to click on stuff and interact that way. The idea here would be that this player agent is independent of our UI. The player agent is independent of our UI, and we'd end up writing, that's why we need to sort of forward it here instead of putting this directly in our combat controller. So if we were doing this in a way that we wanted to have this be separated from Unity and write a text adventure, we could do it. This is why I've sort of been like, well, I have Unity engine here. I probably should switch this to system.debug. Maybe I'll do that now. System.debug. What is it? System. I think I'm going to do that. I always forget what package I have to do. C# debug.assert. It's in our system.diagnostics. System. All right, so using system.diagnostics. Thank you, Muniz. All right, so the idea is this doesn't care about Unity. I could package it in a separate assembly from my Unity code and use it for a text adventure. That's the idea. And I haven't been perfect at keeping that promise, but that's the idea here and why I've chosen to do that. No worry, Moonness. No worry. Okay. We now have this in our combat controller. So we're going to connect our flea button here. We're going to connect our flea button. And it's not quite implemented yet because we never actually use this check here, this flea combat result. We never actually check if combat's over. All right, so if combat's over, that's essentially how we end our process loop, our process round loop. So we have like this sort of secret loop. It's called a continuation. It's like this secret loop with these callbacks. But let's see if our flea action comes through. Oh, I didn't wire it up. Sorry. I got too excited. Does anyone else get too excited sometimes? I find I get too excited and click the play button too fast. All right, so our flea button is gonna, when we click this, it's gonna be connected to our combat controller. And our combat controller is gonna call player flea. All right, which forwards it down to our agent, which forwards it to our combat manager. So everything has like a single purpose. We're trying to follow the solid principle here of everything has a single purpose. The controller controls the combat manager. The manager is the data model for managing it. Decoupling this, all of our files are currently, I think our biggest file is like 170 lines of code, which is nice. I know everyone who codes anything non-trivial has written a program that has a single file with, you know, thousands of lines. Everyone's done it. Oh, I didn't mean to click attack. I meant to click flee. Chica the Lurk flees and attempts to flee the Dark Knight. Chica the Zerk escapes. All right, so we escaped. Let's see if I flee again. I want to fail the flee. I want to make sure that it can have catches. There's no escape. Okay, so it's technically possible to fail escaping. All right, and so what we're gonna do then, what we are gonna do is in our combat manager, the results that we get, we're gonna check if the combat's over. We're not gonna start the next round. We're gonna actually have another thing that says like end combat. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but we're gonna say if our result dot is combat over. So if combat is not over, we're gonna start the next round. Yeah, so if combat's not over, we're gonna start the next round. Moon Nids, that's exactly right. The player controller for Ludum Dare, I think it's how it's pronounced. 52 was almost 800 lines of code. However, I've separated 85% of it in its own components. So hopefully I'll be done with this. Hopefully I'll be done this week with everything. Then I might make an editor to add different components for each object. Yeah. So we've all been there. I don't think there's any programmer who hasn't been there, especially when you're first starting out. I think the very first program I ever wrote was this. It was sort of this game where it was ASCII, it was a text-based game, but you were a character on the screen, you're like the letter A, and there were these bombs falling from the sky. It was turn-based, so you would click which direction to move, so you're trying to avoid getting hit by these falling things. And I didn't know how to do random generation, so it was all 100% hard-coded on how you're going to move the position of your character. There was no loops. I didn't know how to write loops yet. And so it was this giant program written in BASIC that I think was like 20,000 lines of ifs and prints, because I didn't know how to do loops. I didn't know how to do functions, but I knew how to copy and paste and write a gnarly program. We've all been there. I should see if I can find it. I think I have it on a disk. On a big old 5.5-inch floppy disk somewhere. All right, so now if we flee, there was no escape in the Dark Knight attacks. If we flee and we're successful, it ends. All right, so it ends, and now we can't attack, we can't flee, nothing else happens. So now we sort of get this notify. The combat's over. Combat is over. And something that I think is kind of important here to do is our combat manager needs to have an event. Well, it does have an event on change. I think it might make sense on change. Let me think about this. All right, it is sending that result to our combat controller. So when we wake up, we have an event on combat event. Our manager on we're just forwarding it there. But I also think we need to register a thing that checks. So in addition to forwarding this to anyone who's listening to the controller, I think we also want ourselves to have a little thing here that we can invoke the combat being over. All right, so we're gonna do the fallen field, serialize. I think to separate this idea out, we're gonna have another event, Unity event. And this one doesn't have any armor, it just says on combat over. So when combat's over, we can send out a signal, and that signal will cause sort of like the end of combat screen to show up. So like a combat result, it might have like the reward you receive, or it just a thing that says combat has ended. Click enter, press enter to continue. Click this button to continue. So we'll have a little dialogue pop up that's going to show you the overall result of the combat. In this case, the only way to end combat is to flee. So it'll say like you coward, you know, and then click a button to return to town. Okay, or to return to wherever you happen to be. We have this on combat over. We still forward all combat events here, but we're gonna add another. I think it makes sense to add in a method, private void, that handles this. Handle on handle combat events. All right, it's going to accept combat results like this. All right, so we're going to handle combat results, and so we're going to register handle combat events to it like that. And so when we get a combat result, we're just going to forward that for the combat event. This, and we need a check. We need a check that says also. I thought I renamed this. There we go. If the result happens to be that combat is over, we also are going to invoke on combat over. So we're going to notify everyone. And I suspect we're going to end up passing something in here, but I don't know what that looks like yet. So there's going to be like a combat reward or some kind of thing. Not necessarily a combat result, but we might forward the combat result. We'll see. We'll see. Is that what we want to do? You know what? This feels silly. This feels silly. We're going to just forward that to... All right, I take it back. I take it back. We're not going to add a method here. We're not going to add a new event. Instead, we're going to have a dialogue that registers and it listens, and when it receives an event that says combat is over, then we'll have a thing pop up. All right, that seems more reasonable. So let's add a little dialogue here. We're going to add a dialogue, and the dialogue is going to be it's going to be the thing that pops up when combat is over. All right, so we're going to add in a new empty. It's going to be like combat result dialogue. All right, and we want it to be centered in the screen, and we'll make it 800 by 600. So it'll pop up there in the middle. Maybe it needs to be a little bit taller. 800 by 900. Yeah, we'll have it be that. 800 by 900. That in a background image. So add an image on it. Image. And the image we're going to add happens to be our dialogue image. So we've cut this dialogue to slice properly. So we'll have this sort of come up here. And then this is going to be our result. So we're inside of this thing. We're going to have things going sort of from top to bottom. So we're gonna add a vertical layout group. So the vertical layout group lets us lay out things from top to bottom. And the first thing we're going to add in is just a little label at the top that is going to say combat result or some sort of title like that. Let's have this thing control the width, height, but not expand height. Okay, let's add some padding. I think 20 was what we decided was the correct number for these. All right, so rather than error message, this is going to be, it's gonna be like a flee result. Daniel, my friend, welcome back. Welcome aboard. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. So nice to see you. So nice to see you. I like that emoji. Hello, hello. So this is gonna be you escaped. So this is gonna be the escape result. Escape result dialogue. And part of me feels like maybe it's not gonna be that and we're gonna have a different title. But for now we're gonna say you escaped. And then we'll have a button that says return to town. Button. You're in programming club right now. That's awesome. Your school has a programming club, or is this outside of school? That's sweet. A button here. This button's gonna say return to town. Right. And I want this button to be all the way at the bottom outside of school. That's cool. That's still cool. I'm really happy to hear that you have an outlet like that. We're adding an empty. That's going to be our spacer. So I want to have space that fills up everything in between. The idea is you'll have like some sort of result dialogue here that shows like how much experience you had, any penalties you received. Let's add a spacer here and have this thing be a layout, and it has a flexible height. And so if you want something to space things out, just put it in there with a flexible height. Little trick I learned for doing some layout stuff is adding in these nice little spacers to put stuff in between. So if your other elements do not have a flexible height on them, it just sort of says, well, I'm going to be my size. And then this one has a flexible height, no preferred height, no min height. Min height would be okay as well though. But a flexible height actually stretches it out. Daniel, tell me about your club. How many people are in your club? How did you find your club? This is really cool. You have this club and outlet for programming. I never had that when I was a kid. When I was younger, I was literally the only programmer I knew until I got to college. That's not quite true. I knew one only programmer my age. My uncle was a programmer. And then the other programmer I happened to know, I was in Scouts with. Scouts, and there was one other guy in Scouts who was a programmer, but we never collaborated on anything. Daniel's trying to solve a problem with C++, but for loops is so confusing. Well, not actually loop, but the problems you're having are confusing. Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting. Loops, I think once you're able to like identify how to, the problem you're having, and translate to loop can be super helpful. Rave says it's like that here on the island too, where no one else is a programmer. Is that what you mean, Rave? Real quick, I got to give a shout out to Rave. If you're not following Rave, Rave is a real game developer. I'm developing prototypes. I'm a teacher, so I'm building this to be able to understand the components so I can teach it. Rave's a real game developer. He is developing a space trucker game, which is super cool. He's done all of the art assets for, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I've done all of the art I haven't done them. He's done all of the art assets for it. Rave is embarrassed by the code, but a real game developer. You're trying to produce a real game that you can publish and have people use. I'm not doing that. I've never done that. All of my games, everything I make is always it's never for the purpose of like being published. So I think it's awesome that you're doing that. And Rave actually I had Rave do a little bit of commission work for me, which I loved. Made a sweet little space thing. So go check that out. There's a time lapse on Rave's YouTube as well. Rave says someone reminded me I'm a full stack dev in every capacity. All right, so we have this. Our return to town button is actually going to cause us to go back to town, which I don't think we have that in here yet. So let's add in our combat controller. We're going to add in a little thing here. That's going to be a public method, public void return to town. And this is going to use our location, which we're going to have to import using scene location dot town dot transition, and we're going to transition with our player. That. Although, is that in our player controller actually? Player in our character control. I don't think it is. Yeah, it's not there. Okay. So we add this return to town. Anyone know if VS Code has inline hints for C# like Writer has? It's a good question. The hints, it's not like Writer has. So it's not like Writer has, but you can get this to show up if you hover. All of my things have like hints, but it's not the best hints. I do like Visual Studio's hints quite a bit better. So our return to town button, we're gonna attach this to our combat controller. And this will actually, oops, this will attach to our combat controller. And our combat controller has returned to town. So this will show up, allow the player to return to town. Okay. All right. But this should only appear when we receive the event that things are over. And in fact, it shouldn't appear until like the text is finished as well. Daniel says, the way I found the club is that somewhere after the start of 2020, I got an idea to make a game, and I found that the place I went to, a different club, has a programming club at it. So before the end of the start, I signed up, and when school year started, I get going there. That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for you that you found that. I'm very, very happy for you. All right, so we're gonna have you escaped, and this one's gonna listen. This is why I kind of wanted their combat controller to have a different event for the escape, because it would be nice to be able to not have to write anything special. But I think I'm going to have to write something special because it's delayed. I only want it to show up when the text is done being displayed down here as well. So I kind of need like a dialogue here. So it's going to be my UI. UI combat. I'm sensing that the script I'm about to add for this. Oh, not to make a game, but making games in general. Gotcha. Making games in general. It's a good motivator. I think that is why I started programming as well. Or what got me interested in it was I was really into text adventures and role-playing games when I was younger. UI combat. We're gonna create here. I'm pretty sure this dialogue is not gonna be called escape dialogue. All right, I'm gonna start here with this. I'm pretty sure we're gonna have like a general combat dialogue that comes up, but we're gonna start with escape dialogue here, just because that's what I'm currently creating. And then when I need to, I know I'm gonna probably have to have a separate one, like the results will look different, and so this thing will actually be able to interpret the results a little bit better. But this thing needs to have something. Let's see here. Public void process combat results. All right, so this thing needs to listen to combat results. And so it's a combat result. And the idea is when the result dot is combat over, when we get a combat over, this thing pops up. This thing pops up. Why is that complaining? Let's come back over here. Namespace cannot directly contain member. Oh, this. I'm not inside my class. I'm not inside my class here. Brahms, thank you so much for the follow. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. Happy Tuesday. And I always enjoy knowing that people are lurking. But if you ever have a question, do not hesitate to ask. I'm a teacher. I want to answer your question. That's the reason I'm here, to spread knowledge and to have a good time. I like hanging out while I'm coding on these things. But welcome aboard. So nice to have you here. Yeah, result combat over. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn ourselves on. So if the combat is over, we need to turn ourselves on. So we're gonna go to game object.set active to true. So we're gonna activate ourselves. This is how we get ourselves to pop up on the screen. And I'm gonna want that to be delayed a little bit. I actually don't want it to happen until my dialogue finishes, but let's see if we can get it just to pop up first. All right, so we're gonna put that up, and then it's gonna have this like sort of delay that says when there's no more text coming from our text writer, when the queue is empty. We're gonna disable, we're gonna turn our escape dialog off here, and we're gonna attach it to our combat controller's combat event here. So it's gonna listen for events using its, oh, I have to add it on there real quick, sorry. This is the escape dialog. It's probably going to be called a combat dialog. In fact, I'm going to rename that now. Pro tip in Unity, do not rename your files. Do not rename your files in your editor. Only rename them in Unity. So if I were to rename it in my editor, it's going to break this object that's using it. So I need to rename it here. Call it a combat dialog. Right. So now it's updated the metadata, or now it's currently in the process of updating the metadata. If we click here, it says that I cannot find the script combat dialog. Moon is the rename function that like connects to VS to Unity for you. That's nice. Brahms, have a wonderful day, my friend. Thanks for popping in. We'll see you next time. See you next time. So renaming the file you do here, but renaming the actual name should be done in your editor. That's awesome. Combat dialog. All right, so if I do this, so let me ask Moon is in Writer, if you rename your class here, does it rename your file? So that the issue is that renaming your class name isn't the same as renaming the file. And so that's where Unity gets confused, is the metadata doesn't get updated properly. All right, so now we have this combat dialog attached to our escape dialog, and we are going to say, well, we're going to process the combat result. So every time an event comes through, we process it. And this one says if it's over, we're going to pop up. So let's see if we can get it to pop up here. Do a little bit of manual testing. Gonna do a little bit of manual testing here. I click flee. There we go. Chica the Zloric escaped, and now I can return to town. I can go look for trouble again. I can try and flee. I happen to flee that time. Let's see. If I flee, I didn't escape. The Dark Knight caught me. So, but what I want to have happen is I don't want this dialogue to pop up if there's still text going down here. So we're gonna make it wait. We're gonna make it wait until that is done talking, until the text done coming out, and then it'll pop up. All right, so that's what we want to do next. So to do this, I think our log renderer, I think the easiest way to do this is in our log renderer. I think I would like it to have an event that basically tells people, hey, I'm done printing stuff. There's nothing left. There's nothing left to print. And if you need to do something, go ahead and do it now. So I think that's what I want to do here. I want to add an event. All right, so I'm going to add an event, public Unity event. So I'm going to have to import using Unity engine.events. Right. Unity event of no type on render on log complete. All right, so on log complete, anytime the queue is empty, this will fire. And we're gonna go ahead and add this in here, field, serialized field, so that we can find it in the editor if we need to. Okay. And the idea is that whenever our queue happens to be empty, all right, so if our queue happens to be empty, we are going to say, oh, we don't need to fire this every time. Interesting. I don't want to fire it the first time the queue is empty. I want it to fire a bunch of times. So we kind of need to track that a little bit. It was a little bit more complex than I thought it was going to be. So here's the issue. I could do a thing here. I say on, what did I call my function? On log complete dot invoke. I could do this, but it's going to invoke this every frame, and I don't want that. I don't want this invoked every frame. I really only want this to be invoked once, the first time it's empty. Okay. Once the first time it's empty. So what I think I want to do here is after I've rendered, I'm going to do a little check that says, am I done? So now here I'm going to say if my render queue dot count is less than 1, then I'm going to invoke that we're finished. All right, so if I've just taken the last thing out of it, I'm going to invoke this. And now my combat dialog is going to say, okay, when combat's over, instead, I'm going to register myself to listen for when this thing is done. Okay, so we need to be able to get our combat log render. So we're going to do a public, or no, it's going to be a private combat log renderer. And we're going to serialize this. And we're going to say when combat's over, we're going to add a little event here that says when the log is finished, set ourselves to active. Add listener. So when combat is over, we're going to listen for when the render is done printing information. Let's give it a shot. I think, well, almost. We got to wire this up a little bit more. We have to tell it what we're listening to here. So our escape result, now we have this log render. We're going to pull that in here. All right, so now we have that guy. We're going to listen to it. So it'll only show up after the text has been printed. So let's try and flee. And then it comes up. We escaped. All right, and now we can't do anything on those, and we can return to town. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go look for trouble one more time. Flee. Excellent. Okay, pretty happy with where we are right now. We're gonna make a commit. We got our flee button working. The mechanics for fleeing could definitely be adjusted. The big baller's back. Hello, my friend. Welcome back. Welcome aboard. Happy to see you. Here. But yes, we are going to make a commit. How have you been, big baller? What are you working on today? All right, let's take a look here. We don't need adventure quest.entity as an import here. The log complete. Added that event to the combat log. We have a bunch of extra stuff we don't need here. Our dialogue knows how to pop itself up when it's ended. Make read only. You can't make it read only, and won't be able to access it in our editor. Let's see here. Big Baller says, I'm fine, just made a painting using an AI tool. Nice, nice. Yeah, I love. Which AI tool are you using? I've been, all of the art for this game, almost all of the art for this game so far has been generated using DALL-E or DALL-E. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's named after an artist, and I'm just not good. Our player agent here has a flea. All right, so we did revisions there. We created a flea action. We don't need this import. Put a space there and do a format. Hot Pot. Yeah, I mostly use, I haven't heard of Hot Pot. I mostly use DALL-E, which is powered by OpenAI. So I have an OpenAI account that I can use that isn't paid for by me. So I have someone who will generate DALL-E content for me and pay for it for me. So I can, not quite unlimited. I have a hard cap of some amount per month, but yeah, I really like it. I want to get access to the Leonardo AI, which is specifically for making game elements. All right, so cool. So feat, implement flea action. Implement the flea action. So added a implement flea action. Added. Tell me how it is, Moon. It looks awesome, but I haven't been able to use it because I don't have access to it. I applied for early access to have not received it, so I'm a little sad. But it looks really good because it's trained specifically for making game assets, which is sort of what you want. Flea action. Yeah, so it's great for concept art. That's sort of how I feel. I don't think it's particularly great for sort of what I would call production, but for prototyping, for concept art, for just getting ideas, boom, it's awesome. So we implemented a flea action, and flea action allows player to attempt to run from combat. Added a dialogue to combat scene, which displays when the flea is successful and allows the user to navigate back to town. What else did we do? Additionally, attached flea action to flea button. Okay. Updated combat manager to combat result to have a bool is combat over, and then also updated our combat manager. Moonis says, give me something to generate so I can test it. Can you generate? All right. How specific do you need for an asset? So what I would generate, let's see, can you generate a generate buttons? It's a prompt. I haven't tried it yet. I want to generate button icons for attacking, defending, opening your inventory, and fleeing. Can you see if you can generate some icons to replace these buttons? So generate button icons specifically. I'd be really interested how it did. So I want an attack, a defend, an inventory, and a flee button icon. Biotest, welcome back, my friend. So nice to see you. How have you been, Bio? We're gonna update the combat manager. Update combat result to have a bool is coming out. Update combat manager to stop processing rounds when the combat result is combat over is true. All right, made some good progress. Bio, I'm so glad to hear it. Anyone who doesn't know, Bio, Are you a streamer by any chance, Bio? Bio's made some assets for us in the past, so I just wanna give a shout out to you, Bio, for the awesome music you've created, the awesome art you've created, made some little icons for us. But yeah, I just want to give a little shout out to Bio here for all of the help you've done for us, done for me and my classes. So I appreciate it. But if you have anything you'd like to promote, let me know. I'd be happy to share that link. Yeah. So anyway, Bio's awesome. And so we got that commit in. I'm happy. Let's take a look. We're gonna take a break here. Parameters, just text the text. All right. So I think one of the things that's really nice, supposedly really nice about the Leonardo AI is your ability to fine tune it, which you can also do with OpenAI. Oh, I know, Big Baller. I know I got to do that. That's why I was asking if Bio had wanted me to shout out specifically. If Bio's not doing a, yeah. So Bio's hasn't streamed in a while, so I didn't want to if Bio wasn't wanting me to shout out their name. All right. So we added a flee action. The next thing we're gonna try to do. Oh, you want me to shout out that? Shout out to ALKFR. What do you stream, Bio? What do you stream? Do you stream? I'm assuming you stream gaming. So if anyone wants to check out a gamer who makes stuff though, but do you stream your content creation? All right, so we finished a flee action, which I'm happy about. We're gonna take a quick break here. We're gonna take a quick break. We're gonna take a quick break. I got 45 minutes left in the stream, so hold tight with me. I will be back. All right. Well, we just gave a shout out to the wrong account. So I apologize for that. But I'm gonna take a quick break. I gotta get a new coffee. I'm out of water. We're gonna come back. We're gonna do some stretching. So hang tight with me, and we'll be right back. Those two things look identical to. Oh, I see. We'll try this one here. All right, it's telling me I can't do a shout out to that one, so I apologize. I tried, but we'll be back. We're gonna get some coffee, and I will be back. Hang tight. All right, we're back. Checks party. Thank you so much for the break. It's for the raid, not the break. Thank you so much for the raid. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. We got Checks party here. Thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate for that. Let's see if I can do this right. We're gonna give Checks party 500 points. Thank you so much for the raid. We appreciate it. Jashum, let me know if I'm pronouncing it right. Jashum, we appreciate you being here. But happy Tuesday. You just caught me getting some coffee. We're about to do a stretch break. Here. Oh, Unity Coder, thank you so much for the recommendation. Thank you so much for that. Let's since Unity Coder, all right. Unity Coder recommended us. We're gonna have Unity Coder 250 points as well. So thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. We appreciate it very, very much. But what are we doing here? We are about to do a stretch break. We're in the process. Jess, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. So what have we been doing today? We are building Biotest. Thank you. We're gonna listen to Biotest music while I chit chat here a little bit. Bio, let me double check. But no lyrics in it, correct? Lyric list music. No lyrics allowed. All right, sweet. All right, so here's a little ditty Bio has posted for us. Thank you. Oh, some crunchy music there. Nice little loop. Thank you for sharing it. All right, so we were in the process here of I'm a teacher, computer science teacher, so we're trying to build the components of an RPG game, so like a text-based RPG, and the text-based RPG, but with a user interface using Unity. All right, so we have a user interface using Unity. We're currently working on the combat systems that we've been working on for several days. This is, Checks Party. This is the project that I'm going to be teaching. So the project is adventurequest.captaincoder.org. As I produce content for my students to use, it'll be posted on this site, Adventure Quest. So if anyone wants to go back and get caught up, we've almost everything, pretty much everything that we have done so far has been live streamed. And there's an archive of it that people can go get at Captain Coder Live on YouTube. So I've live streamed it there as well. So all of the live streams done. There's been just one or two little things that we did off stream that get explained afterwards. But the entire project's been live streamed as far as creation goes. And the goal is to build a project for my students on how to create each of these components. So the project is based on old school, I don't even know old school, people still play Dungeons and Dragons, but based on tabletop role-playing games. So the first thing you do is, in this project, you're gonna put together die roller, a dice notation parser, and then you use that to create a character creator. So you sort of randomly generate your character, you can roll for stats. And then once you have your character, we define an inventory system. And so you end up with an inventory system. And then we built the project for creating a shop hasn't been built yet. But you end up with an inventory system where you can buy items, have gold, so characters able to carry stuff. After that, we implemented a status screen. So we have our character here. And we have a drag and drop equipment system. So we can equip stuff by dragging it in, dragging it out. Different types of slots. You can't equip weapons to other slots. You can't dual wield in this game. So you can't equip two weapons, but you can put the weapon in either hand. So we built the system for doing that. And now we're working on our combat system. Hang on, I'm gonna give myself a weapon real quick before I go into combat. So you can go looking for trouble. We get a Dark Knight to appear. We can attack. This hasn't been finished yet, but we have our dialogue system working. So remember, it's text-based with user input here, so we can attack It attacks, the Dark Knight comes back at us and misses, so we can attack back and forth. So we've sort of built, you know, this semi-enemy system here for generating enemies. We haven't finished how combat ends yet, but we just finished. You just coming in this. We just finished adding the escape, the flee option. You don't always escape, but the thing. Oh, we happened to escape this time. Let's try again. So you only get that dialogue if you manage to actually escape, and the dialogue only shows up after the text is done. So yeah, this is the project that we're trying to teach students. So that's where we're at. So we've been streaming here for a bit. We just took a break to get more coffee. And if you're new to the stream, I like to encourage everyone right now. I'm going to encourage everyone to join me. Join me in some stretching. Let's get back to our combat scene here. Join me in some stretching. If you're a coder, even if you're not a coder, it's important to take care of your body. It's important to take care of yourself. Don't end up like me. I got carpal tunnel on my right arm. Exactly, Checks Party. This is a project that's all about Unity canvases and event systems. So for the most part, we are avoiding using the update, Unity's magic update method. We're avoiding that and instead learning about Unity's event system. Daniel, I think I missed your message. Let me scroll up here. Daniel, oh yeah, I did miss it. Sorry about that. I've been sitting here for over half an hour just trying to figure out how to write this. Careful with the language in mind. I wrote PG-13 to write this. The task is I need to solve a math problem with a for loop. I just need to get the sum of 1/2 plus 1/3 plus 1/4 all the way to 1/10. Okay, let's look at it. I saw your message. Once we're done stretching, Daniel, we're going to take a look at that problem. How does that sound? All right, so we're gonna do some stretches first. So everyone, please, if you can, join me in a stretch. If you're at work, encourage your coworkers to join us all in a stretch. We're gonna take care of ourselves today. All right, so we're gonna do two of my favorite stretches. So to do this one, we're gonna try and stretch out our forearm here. Take your hand, you're gonna put it out forward, you're gonna grab your fingers, and you're just gonna slowly pull back until you're feeling that stretch here. We're gonna do this for 30 seconds on the left side, 30 seconds on the right side, and then we're going to switch to the next exercise, the next stretch. So go ahead, pull back. You shouldn't feel pain. On this. You should feel that stretch though. If you're not feeling the stretch, pull back a little bit more. If you're feeling pain, release a little bit. You don't want to hurt yourself. So we're going to hold this for another 20 seconds here. All right. But once again, Checks, thank you so much for the raid. Happy to have you here. How did your stream go? Sorry, I've been so selfish here. I should have asked, how did your stream? Oh, that feels so good. All right, we're gonna switch now to our others. And we're gonna switch back. I'm doing my right forearm now. I'm going to pull that out, get it nice and stretched out here. I'm glad you're enjoying what you hear. Yeah, too often. So I've been entrusted with teaching an intro to Unity class. And I'm pretty new to Unity. But I consider myself a reasonable programmer. I've been doing it for a while. And every tutorial I've looked at for Unity, I'd say not every, but 90% of tutorials sort of teach a lot of really bad practices in an attempt to teach people how to program while learning Unity. So my approach is a little bit different. My intro to Unity class requires you to have taken, we're gonna switch here. All right, so this next stretch, you're gonna go the other way. So now you're gonna pull down and you're gonna feel the stretch along the top of your arm. All right, so we're gonna do this stretch here. I feel like you really need to know the basics of programming before you start using Unity. That's not true, you don't need to. You will likely be more successful if you learn them separately, right? So learn to program, then learn Unity. And you don't need to program, you gotta learn the basics. Exactly, Jazz. Let me know if it's Jazz. Is it okay if I say Jazz? Basically, if you use that, oh, that's good. There we go. I'm gonna switch now to our right arm, get that stretch in. Moon is maybe. It depends on how you're using coroutines. If you're using coroutines to do the just waiting for events to finish, it's a little bit tricky. Absolutely, Jazz. I agree. For anything you want to learn, anything you want to do, learn the fundamentals and get solid at those fundamentals first. Oh, this is a good stretch. This feels beautiful. All right. We got this stretch here for another 5 seconds. And we're going to shake it out. Do a little bit of shaking. Shake it around. There's nothing wrong with update, except it's you can write more sustainable code. More sustainable code if you don't put everything in update. All right, so now we're gonna do shoulder rolls here. Do some shoulder rolls. So we're gonna right shoulder 1, going backwards. 4 back, and then we're gonna do 4 forward. Get ourselves nice and limbered up a little bit. Now go to the left arm. This one I'm gonna do a little bit longer because this one I have something going on. So my back roll, I'm gonna do it a couple more times for you. If you're not feeling so, yeah. So right here, I'm feeling a little bit of something here. So I'm gonna do these rolls nice and slow there, just so I can work out whatever's going on in my shoulder there. Yeah, do some shoulder rolls like this. Now let's go forward. Going forward on this. There we go. Oh, there we go. So yeah, JASM, that's exactly right. You got to learn the absolute basics to be able to do anything. Otherwise, you're going to be overwhelmed with all the 90 things. And so my Intro to Unity class, I've told students it isn't a game development class. We're going to be developing components of games, but it is actually an object-oriented design class. So you're going to be learning about object-oriented design and event-based programming. So far, most of them have written programs that sort of run top to bottom, but event-based program where it says, all right, there's some sort of system behind the scenes that are gonna be calling stuff for us. All right, Daniel, we're gonna take a crack at your question here. So Daniel has a question. He's writing a program in C#, I believe. So Daniel, real quick, I'm gonna do C++. Sorry, I think Daniel's doing C++. I'm gonna do it in, is it okay if I do it in C#, Daniel? I think it'll be similar. So do I have a temp directory? I do. All right. So we're gonna blast this directory here. Remove star. All right. Okay. So I'm gonna make a new console project. Absolutely prefer composition over inheritance. Although there are times where inheritance makes sense. There are times where inheritance makes sense, but we're gonna look at your problem, Daniel. So Daniel is having a problem. And I believe this is the question. So Daniel, tell me if this is not the question. Tell me if this is not the question. So I'm gonna write out what I believe your question is. I haven't stumbled, well, stumble is not the right word. I've been informed of the new event system, but we aren't using it yet in this project. This project's all mouse-based, That's not true. It's all mouse-based, it's all canvas input face. All right, so here's the problem that Daniel has. Problem statement. Write a program that calculates the sum of 1 divided by 10 plus 2 divided by 10. Oh no, sorry. Let's scroll up real quick and check it out. All right, 1 divided by 2 plus 1 divided by 3 plus 1 divided by 4 all the way to 1 divided by 10. Is this the correct problem statement, Daniel? Let me know if this is not the correct problem statement. Cool. Okay, so here's our problem statement. So this sort of tells me, there's a couple things it tells me. I cannot use integers. All right, so an integer here, if I do 1 divided by 2 on an integer, I'm not going to get back what what you might expect. So let's run this. So if we do a console.writeLine, on this x. So we're going to do, this is called integer division. You might want this to produce 0.5, like 1/2, but it doesn't. And you might be confused on this. So we're going to run this. We get x 1/2, 1 divided by 2, and we get, oh, I have a hello world still there. And it gives me back 0, right? So it gives me back 0. So no matter how hard I try here, if I do 1 divided by 2 plus 1 divided by 3, I'm always going to get back 0. And that's really, really frustrating. And you might be going like, what the heck is going on here? What the heck is going on here? So what's happening is in a computer, an integer is a whole number. It's essentially a whole number that has, and in most programming, in most programming languages today, this is actually like a 32-bit integer. And this is represented as binary. So I'm gonna write binary as 0B0000. So we have a 4-bit number here. This number's made up of 4 bits. And so this would be the number 0. And my mind still gets blown by this. This would be the number 1. And we're in binary, so we can only have zeros and ones. So we actually end up in what's called the 2's place here. This becomes 2. And so all the way down for all of our numbers, everything's made up of bits, binary bits like this. And so an integer is only capable of storing a whole number. And so when we decide 1 divided by 2, basically the outcome that we've decided as computer science, some old people decided this they're old now, they weren't old then. They decided the behavior should be that we just chop off all the leftovers and this will go to 0. So if you're using an integer, you get 0. So the question is, well, how do I not have this problem? We have this idea of a floating point number. And it's called a floating point number because it sort of floats near the number. And this is an estimation of a value. So a float approximates a value. So this allows us to say 1 divided by 2. And if I run this, I will, sorry. 1 divided by 2, I have to say that these, I want to be a float. 1.0, 2.0, all right. If I did, so if I do 1 divided by 2, it still thinks they're integers. So I actually have to put a 0.0. I need to indicate to this that it happens to be a float. And in C#, the way to do this, you put an F at the end. So I say, this is a float. And now if I run this, it's gonna do float arithmetic and I get 0.5. So this might be the problem that you're running into, is that you're using an integer, not a float. So floats let us do decimals, and these are approximate values. So one thing to remember about floats is they're not exact, so you can be off a little bit. But if you want to approximate a value, this happens to be a good way to do it. Other languages let us have like more precision when we need it, but you shouldn't use this to represent like money because you could get off a little bit. All right, so now we know how to accurately divide stuff. Not accurate, get an approximation. All right, so a float happens to use, you're right, yeah, use doubles in general. I just wanted to explain that float is a floating point number. There's another type called a double. There's another type called the double. Okay, there's another type called the double, it's called a double because it's twice as precise as a float. Yeah, use a float if you're feeling floaty, but a double is twice as precise as a float. And so it gives us a little bit more accuracy. All right, it actually gives us a ton more actually by doubling the number of bits we use. So a double uses 64 bits, a float uses 32 bits. In general, that's not true for every program language. So now that we have this, we want to do this for the numbers 2 through 10. 2 through 10. Right? So we want to do this for 2 through 10. So we're going to write a for loop. We need to do it 10 times. In fact, we're going to do it 9 times. We're going to do it 9 times. So now we're going to write a for loop. So we're going to say for int, what is this? The numerator and the denominator. So I'm going to say my denominator is going to be equal to 2. All right. My denominator is going to be equal to 2. And then while my denominator is less than or equal to 10, I'm going to increase my denominator. So now I'm going to have a loop that goes from numbers 2 to 10. And I'm going to create a value here. I'm going to call it sum. We're going to initialize this to 0. And we're actually going to loop through here. And we're going to say, okay, well, I want to take my sum and I want to increase it. So I'm going to equal sum. So I'm going to use plus equal here. This says add the thing on the right. I didn't miss your message, but I'm just in the middle of a lesson. All right, so we're going to add in and we have a sum. and we're gonna say 1 divided by dim. So we have a little bug here. What do we think the bug is? If I run this, I feel pretty sure we have a bug. If I run this, I'm still gonna get 0. I get 0. This is so frustrating. What's going on? What do we think the bug is? It's related to integer division. It thinks that this stuff over here is an integer. Check says F. I'm not sure if you mean F because, oof, it's not working, or that you know that we want to make this a float. So what's happening is this is evaluating as an integer. It's doing integer division. So one way to solve this is to say, okay, well, I'm going to make this a 1.0. And so now we run this and we get our approximation. All right. Daniel, I hope you found this helpful. Radar, let's see. Second name of programming is bug. Land 3D, I'm so glad you learned something. I don't need to put F here, and in fact, this thing happens to be a double. If I put an F here, it'll do floating division. It'll treat this, it'll do floating division. I could put a D here and say, well, I want it to be double division. In C# specifically, if you have a decimal and you don't put a D or an F at the end, it automatically selects double. But if you want to be explicit, you'd put a D. All right, and it turns out C# also has this thing called M, which is like super precise. M for money, but it uses something called a decimal. Anyway, so that's a little bit of lesson here. There you go. Astro, no problem. Welcome aboard, Astro Singularity. Happy to have you here. Decimals are an awesome type. If you're using money, you want to use them in Java. In some programming languages, they're called big integers. So they have like quote unquote infinite precision. They have some kind of infinite precision. Decimals in C# I think have like actually a limited amount precision, but for the most part, it's as much as you want. They just use up more space. But Astro, I'm so happy to help you there. Welcome aboard. Happy to explain anything. If anyone has other questions, feel free to ask, but I hope that helped. Bio, let's check it out here. Bio posted. Oh, let me scroll up to your message, Bio. Check games channel. Check the games channel. We got a 2-minute video here. So Bio, I'm not going to take the time to watch a whole 2-minute video, but I'm going to tell everyone real quick that Bio has posted something in the Discord. If you're not on the Discord, feel free to hop in there. I'm not going to say that you have to join the Discord, but we love having you in the Discord. It's a great place to ask me questions. I might hop on and help you if I have some time to do it. But join the Discord, can ask questions. We have a great little community forming, but Bio has posted a little video for us to watch there. So if you want to go check it out, Bio, thank you so much for sharing. I'm not going to check it out on the stream today. I have some issues playing videos because of OBS. It has like some weird bitrate thing where the videos end up stalling because it's trying to do video capture. So I can't actually play videos. I've tried several times and it runs into an issue. But anyone who wants to check out what Bio has created, feel free to do so. Chex, thank you so much for hopping in. Have a beautiful day, my friend. Thank you for the raid. As always, keep coding, keep growing, and you're welcome back. You're welcome back anytime. All right, so we have a little bit of time left here. So what are we doing? What are we doing? Sorry, I let myself get distracted here. Yes. So we were in the process. Yeah. So I have a sign on. Let's take a look at my sign on here. What have we done today? I like to do these sign-ons to keep myself honest about what I'm working on and how I'm doing and sort of doing time estimation. So we've reworked our combat system today. We added a flee action. This is our bonus. We've made it bonus. We had a good day. This means we've made some good progress. We're going to start adding a defend action this is going to require some additional stuff. Yeah, C# is I always say I always say that people made Java because they're like, man, there's things in C++ that drive us crazy. So they made Java. And then C# was inspired by that, said, well, there's these things that we really, really dislike about Java. Let's make a better version. And they made a C#. And so C# it falls into a category of what I call C++ based languages. So you get a lot of similarities. And with those for loops, that type of for loops all over the place. All right, but we're going to take a look at defend action here in the last couple minutes of our stream. Let's take a look here. Let's take a look. So let's talk about our system that we have a little bit. Yeah, seg faults, exactly. Radar, I'm not ending. I'm going for another. So I have work in 1 hour. I have to be at work in 1 hour, so we're gonna go a little bit longer here. I'm so sorry we're ending. I'm so sorry we're ending. But we're gonna take a look here. We're gonna talk about what's coming. We're gonna talk about what's coming. Then we're gonna raid someone. So if anyone has someone they want to raid, keep that in mind. Get that in the back of your mind here. Yeah, unfortunately I have to work. Otherwise I could be here all day. So our combat system, we want to add in scripts. Sorry, I'm letting myself model. Java, write once, run anywhere. It was a great idea, right? It's a great idea at the time. Gotcha, Len. Not coding. We might check that out. What are we doing here? Yeah, I haven't seen you stream before, Lam, but I think it'd be good. Pardisi. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, let me know. Pardisi. I would say Pardisi. Welcome aboard. Thank you for the follow. Happy Tuesday. As always, you're welcome to lurk. But let me see if it'll let me shout out your streaming channel bio. Can you post the name of the streaming channel one more time? You're always welcome to lurk, but I'm a teacher. I love to be asked questions. Feel free to boozle me. Just don't bamboozle me. Yeah, bio, can you give me the name of it one more time? I'll try again. I think it wouldn't let me shout it out before. We are in combat. Perdesi. All right, I'm gonna do a copy and paste here. Shout out to Bio stream if you want to, if you'd like to, if you enjoyed the music that Bio created for us, go ahead and give them a like. Give them a like. Check them out. Good stuff. How many bits are in the Matisse of a double? That's a good question. My guess is 54, but I'm not sure. Oh my goodness. I was close. I remembered it was like 50 something. I was close, Jazz. Thank you for keeping me on my toes. All right, so we're gonna start here. We have a couple different actions. So our attack action looks like this. Our flee action looks like this. The reason the defend action is difficult is because we need to add to our player character the ability that when you click defend, it's gonna sort of increase your defense for the next round, maybe the next couple rounds, right? So it's gonna increase your defense at least for some time. So it's gonna give you a bonus. And so our player character, our I character, happens to have abilities, but we kind of need in a combatant to add, like, we need some kind of temporary bonus available to an I combatant that we need to be able to update. So we need to be able to give the combatant some bonus. Oh, it has a defense. Here. So maybe we don't have to do it. Maybe we can. The idea when you defend is your defense is gonna be increased, at least for that round, maybe for multiple rounds. So we need this idea of a sort of modifier that can track it over time. Okay. So I'm not sure exactly how I need to implement it. I think we need to think about defending a little bit more. And so I only have 8 minutes left. So I don't want to start hacking into this code anymore with only 8 minutes left. So just sort of sketching out though that I definitely want a defend action. So we're gonna create a defend action here. Defend action. We're gonna create a stub for our defend action. It's gonna look kind of like our attack action, but it's gonna be called a defend action. Okay, and we might, right? So we're sort of figuring out what that's gonna look like. So we got our defender here is gonna be our defender. Unity Coder, yeah. I has portrait. Well, what's portrait? Is it with to have the I backwards? All right, defender. Absolutely, Jazz. That's exactly what we're doing. This whole project is writing the high level idea, and then we go in and we like massage it. We give it a nice little massage to get it to where we want it to be. But having the not high level idea is nice. So we have this defender here. And the idea of what we want to do is we're going to end up with a comment result. Oh, we got to get Unity to build this for us. I have a typo. Portrait. That's embarrassing. Portrait. The file's named correctly. I'm going to add that to my to-do list. Unity Coder, thank you for having that keen eye. That keen eye there for us. Keeping my fingers active. All right, we have a little bit of a delay here in our we have a bug in our markdown extension. Yeah, we actually have a bunch of tests over here in our we've been writing unit tests as we go as well. But we're implementing our combat first, and then we're gonna go through and say, okay, now that we know how we want combat to work, let's write some tests to make sure it works the way we think. And so we're trying to follow solid a little bit. So once we're done, we're trying to follow open close. All right. So once we're done, the test is there. It's working. For the most part, you don't want to edit it again anymore. All right. So we're gonna add a little thing. Fix typo for I has portrait from I has portrait. All right. So Unity Coder caught my bug there. Add points. Unity Coder. Thank you so much for catching that bug. Have yourself some points. Give you a little bonus there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it very, very much. Daniel, of course. It's my pleasure. All right, so our defend action is gonna sort of look something like this. Combat results. I'm gonna start with the result here. So our result is sort of a builder. And then at the end of the day, we're gonna return that result. And the result sort of tracks the dialogue that we're gonna do. So our result.add. And when someone defends, we're gonna take our defender's name. Prepares, defends themselves. Defends themselves. Themselves? What is it suggesting here? Themselves? Defender. Jasm says, I remember when someone introduced me to test-driven development, I was skeptical of the idea of always writing tests before implementing, but now I can say aside from quick prototyping, should abide by test-driven development. Absolutely. If you have a specification, test-driven development is super helpful. If you know what your inputs and outputs should be, test-driven development's really, really good. I don't always follow it, but I make my students follow it because I always give them a reasonable specification. So if you were to check out my project there, so-and-so defends themselves. Gotcha, I missed it. I missed someone asking about test-driven development. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're gonna do some roll. I think we're gonna roll for a defensive boost here. So we have a little bit of a to-do. All right, to-do, implement details of defending. Gee, that's a great spot. I think it's important to choose a way to design things. There's always an opportunity to use tests if you can't think of anything else. Yes. It's a great way to verify. So what I always say is testing is a great way to give yourself confidence. Testing doesn't prove your program's correct. That's one misconception a lot of people have, especially at the beginning. Testing doesn't prove your program's correct. It gives you confidence that it is working in the way that you expect it to work. Daniel, you may need, are you using Unity? It depends on your plugin. Yes, TDD is a good way to clarify the requirements. We're gonna wrap up here. We got 2 minutes. We're gonna power through this. We got 2 minutes before we're gonna wrap up. So I've created a defend action. So now we're gonna go to our player agent, and we're gonna say that our player agent has a defend, public void defend. And the defend is going to be select action, and we're going to pass in a new defend action with the player. All right. So we've added defend here. And so then we're going to go to our controller. All right. So we have our combat controller. So we need to be able to forward this off here. And our combat controller has to be able to player defend. All right, and it's just gonna forward to our agent's defend here. Daniel asked what plugins I have. I have this, so since I'm doing C#, I have the C# plugin and a Unity plugin. And then you also have to get Unity to generate the correct assets for you. All right, so we have that here. Now I'm gonna wire it up. I'm gonna take my button. Now I'll show you in just a second. I just want to not get too distracted, but in our player info here, we have our menu and our defend button. We need to wire that to the event here. So when we click this defend button, we're going to take our combat controller, and our combat controller say call player defend. So it's going to forward that event to our player. So let's test it out. So we added a defend action. We added it to the player agent, and then we added it to our combat controller. All right, so our combat controller is the scene, essentially. That's the part that communicates with our data model. So we're trying to follow model view controller here. So our model is the player agent, our controller is this button, and the view is the screen. So when I click this defend, Chica defends themselves, and then the Dark Knight attacks Chica the Zlork dodges the attack. So we can keep clicking defend here if we want to. So we've added in sort of a framework here. Now when we go to implement it, we'll be able to. So I'm gonna do a work in progress commit here. So we just finished. So I'm out of time. I got 45 minutes to get to work. I'm gonna take a couple minutes to wrap up here. But let's do a commit. We've started our work in progress. This isn't a feature commit because we're not done with it, but we've started our defend action. So I'm gonna add a little commit here. It's gonna be a work in progress. Implement first draft of defend action. All right, so our work in progress commit. So we can sort of go back and say, well, what the heck did I do? Why did I make this changes? What are those? So another thing that we're trying to follow here is we're making small commits if we can. Small incremental commits. Sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes we get too excited. All right, so let's go ahead and do a sign off. All right, do a sign off here. Exactly, Jasm. We're trying to follow good developments here. Oh, one little thing. It looks like people are getting here. We got Ryan here doing a sign on for us. If you want to try and keep yourself accountable, I'm going to encourage you to do sign-ons and sign-offs. And if you want other people to keep you accountable, join the Discord. Join the Discord. Feel free to use the sign-on channel to keep yourself accountable like I'm trying to do. I don't always remember to do it, but we're going to sign off. All right, we're going to sign off. We continue to work on the adventure case, our primary goal. All right, so we managed to complete this. Complete. All right, and then we also completed implementation of flee action. Started working on exploring the defend action. All right, so that's what we did today. We managed to make some progress. I'm gonna finish that sign off here. And we're gonna go find someone to, oh, Daniel, before I forget, what plugins am I using? I'll show you the two plugins I have for doing Unity stuff. I have the C# plugin. So this is the C# plugin. It's important to have this one to get the autocomplete. You probably have this one if you're getting some messages here. The second thing that's important is that you have your Unity project set up. So just so you know, I went to Edit, Project Settings, and then Editor. No, External, let's go. Not Project Settings. Sorry, I'm wrong. Edit, Preferences, External Tools. You need to make sure you have Visual Studio Code selected here. And then the very, very first time you do this, and sometimes it'll get out of sync, you want to click Regenerate Project Files. You want to regenerate project files, and this should make it so that your Unity, so to speak, is communicating properly with your VS Code. Yeah. So Daniel, I think, was asking specifically about VS Code, but yeah, anything you happen to select, you want to regenerate the project files for it. That said, I don't think VS Code is the most powerful tool. Oh, I have a Unity plugin. Yeah, sorry. So there's one here. This one's not required. I have a Unity debugger installed. This one here. And then I think I have snippets. I have Unity code snippets installed as well. And this gets me a bunch of the additional autocomplete. So it'll autocomplete for update. It does imports for us nicely. All right, everybody. I hope that answered your question. The main reason I use VS Code is it's cross-platform, and I teach students in my class. It's a bring your own device. So I teach remotely online. And so my students have Windows, Mac, and Linux, and VS Code happens to work really, really nice across all of those. All right, everybody. We're gonna find someone to raid here. Let's go to Twitch. Gee, I'm happy to stream. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. Let's go find someone. Let's see. What is Proton working on? Is Proton doing Unity stuff? No, not doing Unity stuff today. Exactly. I tell my students if they're on Windows, they might enjoy. So basically all I say is if you're on Windows, Visual Studio tends to be a lot more powerful as far as the completions, but also with Visual Studio Code, you end up learning a lot more about the overall system, because you have to get into the nitty-gritty details sometimes. The one thing I'll say is that the debugger is not as nice as I might like. We're gonna get rid of this. Let's find someone here. Resharper's great. Writer's great. The one downside with Writer, let's do Unity. Who would you suggest, Daniel? Where are we going, Daniel? But everyone, thank you so much for your time. If you made it this far, actually. Thank you so much for hanging out. Made it to the end of the stream. Have yourself some bonus points. Gare Games Inc. Gare Games Inc. Here we go. We're gonna go raid Gare Games Inc. here. So we're gonna hop in there. Thank you for the recommendation, Daniel. We appreciate it. But we're gonna go give them some love. We're gonna go give them some love. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for being here. I hope you found this useful. I am absolutely loving this. Have a beautiful day, Keep on coding, keep on growing, and I'll be back. Same time, same bat time, same bat place tomorrow, 5 a.m. local time, 7 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Eastern every day, daily. But we'll see you next time. Have a beautiful day, and you're always welcome here.